Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to start the proceedings, so if you don't mind coming downstairs and find a comfortable chair, that we can get the show on the road. If you don't mind coming downstairs, please, we're about to start the proceedings. Sounds go. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Christelle Coleman, and I have incredible honor to be your host for the day. We were just making jokes backstage about mics being on, and there my mic was on. So thank you for that to the producers over there. So today is a special day. It is InsureTalk number 27. We're almost at the end of the year, and it's the first time that we're doing a hybrid event. We've got a few hundred, just under a few hundred people in the room here today, live. And then we've got, as usual, between 3,000 and 4,000 people online. So thank you so much for joining us today. We are about to start the proceedings. Someone's phone is going off there. Okay, so first and foremost, our headline sponsor for today is Bright. InsureTalk is a conference that was developed by, we've got a bit of a sound issue, thank you. Developed, yeah, we talk. Should I stop talking? Okay, just a minute. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. Okay, so InsureTalk is a conference that was developed by the people of this industry for the people of this industry. And I'm off again. Are we on? Okay. So in the dark days of the pandemic, the CN&CO team came up with this wonderful idea to host an online conference to keep us occupied, informed, and connected during the pandemic. And you know, here we are today. We've moved to our first live event, and we are really, really looking forward to our live speakers. We have a number of speakers today. Our content is 20-minute slots, so we are going to get straight into it. Our headline sponsor for today, as I said, is Bright Insurance, and our conference theme is a very interesting theme. So it's resilience and revolution, charting the course of next-gen insurance. So the theme highlights the dual focus on building resilience in the face of emerging risks, such as climate-related challenges and deepfake scams. So very interesting topics there, while also exploring revolutionary advancements in underwriting, claims processes, and the integration of technology in insurance. So we really are talking about the industry's determination to evolve and revolutionize traditional practices for a more resilient and future-ready insurance landscape. It's a mouthful, but at the end of this morning, you will definitely have a better understanding of what we're trying to achieve today. As I mentioned, this is a conference that was developed by the people of this industry for the people of the industry, and it's not possible to do this without our sponsors. It enables us to host this conference free of charge to anyone who wants to attend, who wants to earn their CPD points. And we are so grateful to the insurance brands in our industry that help us do this each month. Of course, we also thank our speakers, because everyone who talks here, most of the speakers are not professional speakers. They are people who make themselves available, make themselves vulnerable in front of thousands of people to come and share their knowledge, skill, and experience so that we all benefit from that. So our Bright Insurance, I just want to tell you a little bit about Bright. They are our headline event partner for the day, Southern Africa's premier proactive business risk specialist. Partnering with customers and brokers, the company aspires to protect their businesses and improve their risk profiles. Bright is a subsidiary of Fairfax Financial Holdings, a holding company based in Toronto, Canada, which, through its subsidiaries, is engaged in property and casualty insurance and reinsurance and investment management. So an international brand, with a fantastic lineup of speakers here this morning. Our first speaker is a fellow Cape Townian. She is going to join us shortly on the stage in person. Liza Morris, Regional Manager for Bright Insurance in the Western Cape. Many of you know Liza. She is most known to the industry as a past president. We share that incredible honor. She's a past president of the Insurance Institute of the Western Cape. She has an FCII and has been in the industry for over 30 years. Liza started her career at Mutual and Federal. She was then moved to Zurich, who we all know became Bright. And she has an extensive career history in the insurance industry, spanning all aspects of it. Liza's topic for today is climate risk and insurance. So on that note, I'm going to hand you over to Liza. Oh, I am so sorry. I've got oh my goodness. This is what happened when there's a sound problem. Liza's going to come onto the stage after Carl. Carl's going to tell us a little bit about the conference. Carl is an investor in people and businesses, and he believes that anything is possible unless you're dead. Something like that? Did I get that right? Over to you, Carl.
Thanks very much. We're going to get all the boring stuff out the way, so sorry, Liza. And Christelle, we do that on purpose, because Christelle's such a brilliant MC, she never makes a mistake, and then I have to live with perfection, so I've decided we'll make your job a bit more difficult today. So it's a great privilege to be here, everybody, with a handful of friends and colleagues live and thousands of people across the country. Great, beautiful day in Joburg, Springboks this weekend. Life really does feel good. So I'm wearing a few hats today. I'm here as an Easy Equities executive, and I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues here and online. I'm chairman of Me Underwriters, and I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues here and online. CN&CO, I'm one of the partners that started the business, but most importantly, and proudly, I'm here as one of the co-founders of InsureTalk Live, alongside Llewellyn, who is the CEO of CN&CO Events. And as Christelle mentioned, in the dark days of COVID, overnight, Llewellyn and his team had zero income, literally nothing. And that wasn't unique. That held true for most people, all people in the creative economy in this country and worldwide. Overnight, these people had no income. And CN&CO is very passionate about the creative economy. Some of our partners and people in the industry like RMB play a massive role in fostering the creative economy. And we're firm believers that those people really drive and make the world a better place. And so Llewellyn and I were chatting. A lot of CN&CO partners are insurance related. Insurance is founded on relationships. It's getting together, it's exchanging ideas, it's having drinks and discussing how you can make things better for your clients. And so we came up with the idea of InsureTalk, and it really was a way to help some people in the creative economy to earn a little bit of income through performing at the InsureTalk Lives, and also to enable insurance professionals to get CPD points, to stay connected. And that really was the idea. Many of you know me, I'm not a great believer in strategy and tons of meetings, so there wasn't any more thought than that. So the first one was on the 15th of April, 2020. It was a few days after my birthday, sad and alone in lockdown, rationing booze. And the first sponsor was I2. Justin Naylor and his team came on board and took a gamble. We had about 110 registrations, and we had about 80 people that joined. And I was so happy I finished, I think, the rest of the booze that I had. We were really chuffed by the attendance. Now, most of us are affair with Teams and Zoom, but at that stage, it really wasn't that easy. But Llewellyn, as he does with his team, produced magic. And we had artists that did some fabulous shows with really crappy technology in their garages, building their own little studios in that time. We've now grown to probably over 3,000 registrations each session. We've had 120,000 registrations in the time. And I really want to thank every single person who gives up their time to join us here at InsureTalk, to learn, to grow, to contribute. A massive thank you. After those initial sponsors, I2, we've had a range of other amazing partners, as Christelle has mentioned. And I want to acknowledge all of them. Many of them are repeat sponsors. Some, like stalwarts and really well known in the industry, Wimpy and the team from Global Choices have been actively involved throughout. We've had Ami, although Christel didn't really have an option to sponsor this or not. Bright, Blue Anchor, our media partners Cover and FA News, CIB, Discovery, Easy Equities, Elite, Genesis, industry bodies ISA and FIA, Lombard, Munich Re, Netstar, OMI, who sponsored, amongst others, they've been involved in a few, but amongst others, the 35th InsureTalk, where we had the highest number of registrations, over 4,200. We've had SHA, Santam, SSP, Yard Insurance, ULife. All of these are fantastic brands and companies, and if I've left any out, that's my fault, so please drop a note in the chat or raise your hands, we can acknowledge you. All of you have given us feedback about the value of InsureTalk to you. Without you, this really couldn't exist, as Christella said, so thank you. Insurance brands are amazing, and this industry is phenomenal. As I've often said, and by your presence, I know that you all agree. Without insurance, society literally cannot function. And so I've got stories about each one of the sponsors that I've mentioned. Each one of them contributes so much beyond their day-to-day underwriting-related activities. But I'm picking one of them, and I've picked Bright because they are the lead sponsor today, just to share a story of what comes from InsureTalk, what can come from InsureTalk, and what comes from this industry. I was chatting to a guy called Taddy Bletcher the other day, and some of you will know Taddy. He's an actuary by training, but Taddy heads up the Marashi Institute, which is based in town, close to the old Hollard offices and close to Bright. And when I mentioned that Bright was sponsoring today's InsureTalk, Taddy was overjoyed. He's a big fan of Bright, and it's not hard to see why. Bright is committed to hiring 1,000 Marashi graduates over 10 years, and the first over 200 have already started. Over and above this, the students are working part-time at Bright while studying 4 hours a day. So these guys earn an income and they gain experience, while Bright gets resources and a pipeline of phenomenal talent. And these individuals, over and above their business degree that they get at the Marashi, where they're doing level 4, 5, and 6 qualifications within short or long term, they do their phase exams, they learn about FICA, POPI, know your customers, all the stuff that we need to know in insurance. And so these guys get far more than just a BCom degree, thanks to Bright and Marashi. And this institute is a fantastic example of entrepreneurship and innovation and partnerships, which are essential ingredients for success in our country and in our economy, particularly when we're all feeling a little bit down, more often than not. And mutually beneficial partnerships like the one between Marashi and Bright really, for me, is inspiring. And as I said, every single brand I mentioned has stories like this, and we need to tell them more. So I encourage you all to chat to the Bright guys, to chat to Marashi, to see if you can get involved. They also do a lot of BE consulting, partly thanks to them. Bright is a level BE1 contributor. So there are many links to be gained, not just by the content online, not just through the chats, but through the networking, and that's why we wanted to have a live session today as well. Entertainment over the years has included Leah, a well-known Afrikaans singer, who just absolutely said, yes, I'm going to contribute and help. And she was super professional and did a fantastic job. We had David Johnson from Treatment Rugby, Bianca LaGrange, we had Larry Softer, the magician, and we generally try to give local artists an opportunity, but we have featured some artists from further afield. We've had Alan from C Results Digital Boxing doing a boxing demonstration. We've had a chef or two, really just to give people exposure and generate a little bit of income for them. Our MCs, our first MC was Simon Coleman. I think it's funny that Llewellyn thought that Simon and I didn't know that we were live mic'd when we swore, and Simon also just immediately agreed to help us out from the word go. We've had Nonnie, we've had my brother friend Tao, we've had Christel Coleman. These 4 individuals are insurance royalty, and every time I've asked them to help, they've gladly stepped up to the plate to give up their expertise. So yeah, we can give them a round of applause. Yes, when they've not been available, we've had to scrape the bottom of the barrel. Llewellyn has begrudgingly allowed me to say something. So Llewellyn's favorite insurance talk oomblik is to ek en Simon by die eerste ene gevloek het. My mic was not on. I think that was partly the sound problem, Christel's, because all the tech people were so scared that I was going to swear that my mic was off, everything was off. So I think that was the challenge. So I probably just should swear and say something about onkant or the like. But but I won't because Llewellyn will get stressed. But Llewellyn's favorite part was when we went for the first time over 2,000 registrations. And he said that he never dreamt that we would still be here so many editions later. Now, I absolutely knew we would be, and not out of arrogance, but because if you start something for the right reasons with the right people, it always succeeds. It's not always easy, but it always succeeds. And because of the people in this industry, I had no doubt that this would succeed. A huge thanks to Francois, Verona, and Umdani from Llewellyn's team. They really are the backbone with Llewellyn of putting this all together quietly behind the scenes. The only person more difficult to deal with than myself is Llewellyn. So they really do deserve a massive thanks for all their creativity and hard work. And biggest thanks, of course, is to Llewellyn. A couple of weeks back, about 2 weeks, the CN&CO team, thanks to one of our partners, Blake Dyson, he's given you all a copy of the latest insurance directory. That was his brainchild. But Blake Dyson from CN&CO took us up Table Mountain, where we overnighted in one of the huts there. Many of you might not know that there are remnants of an old post office on Table Mountain, railroad tracks, that there are a couple of huts, that at one stage over 300 people lived there. Table Mountain's got about 750 kilometers worth of trails. It's a magnificent experience if you haven't done that. And so we went up. This is not Llewellyn in his natural habitat. Llewellyn's natural habitat is in his home next to the fancy hotels named out of my mind now in Cape Town. That is in a suit. That's Llewellyn's natural habitat. But Llewellyn is stubborn, he is determined, he is passionate, and once he said he's going to do something, he absolutely will do it. And that's been true of InsureTalk. So the only thing that he loves more than InsureTalk is his dog, and his partner knows, and his family and friends, that it's Phoebe, InsureTalk, and then the rest. And so thank you very much, Llewellyn, for what you've done here and for continuing to do this. So in conclusion, this is an amazing country. And people, I think, say that lightly these days. And the world is, and I won't swear and say, effed fully. But with the war in the Ukraine, the terrible situation in Gaza and Israel, and so much across the world, there really is a lot of fear and anger and heartache and death and trauma that everybody's experiencing and will for many years to come. The consequences of the war, for instance, in the UK, and affects supply chains and farmers and fertilizers in Africa and food supply. It has massive impact on all of us now. Children who are losing parents, siblings that are losing their brothers and sisters through bombs. The implications will be for many, many decades to come. So amidst all of this, I remain positive because of the people in this industry and in insurance. And I think our Springboks, which is an easy analogy because of the time that we're in, have shown us that with a bit of, or rather a lot of passion, a bit of luck, diversity, anything is possible. So thank you very much for being a part of InsureTalk. Please continue to influence it and for doing what you do in the insurance industry. I hope you have a fantastic day and look forward to having a drink with you guys later. Thanks very much. Thanks, Christelle.
Carl. We're testing back again. I think Carl's main issue or main purpose in life is to be in difficult positions, and he does it really, really well. I hand you over to Liza and get a new mic.
I hope my mic plays nicely. So with my topic this morning, I really thought I was going to walk into a nice tall glass of Sauvignon Blanc here on the stage just to calm my nerves. So am I clicking or are you clicking? Just need to find myself. There we go. So extreme weather and insurance. And this quote by Barack Obama really set it out for me. We're the first generation to feel the impact of climate change and the last generation that are going to be able to do something about it. And it really kind of hits home because we've been having it. I mean, this year we've had snow in Jozi. We have floods like no other. We had a hurricane in KwaZulu-Natal. And I mean, it's still not over. We have still hail season, wildfire season coming along. And that's just, 2023. So They always say that clever people make things simple. And when you actually look at insurance, it is a simple concept. We create pools, and the funds of the many look after the claims of the few. Extreme weather kind of takes that and throws it out the window. So I'm going to just take you through just a couple of those cats that happened, and this is thanks to Munich in 2022. So if you look at that, 270 billion US dollars in nat cats globally. There's kind of not a continent or place there that's not touched. The biggest, though, was Hurricane Ivan. You take Hurricane Ivan out, that was 100 million USB. You take, oops, I'm jumping, sorry, I want to stay on this one for a little bit. You take that out, and still, though, 170 billion on the rest of the cats. But wait, like a bad commercial, there's more. This year, Munich has said by half year, we were already on 110 billion USB. And so I think we're going to break 22's record loss. America has had 23 cats, and that was by mid-year. We, this year, it's been like, as much as I say we've had snow and we've had floods, our floods haven't been to the size of KwaZulu-Natal. You'll see that South Africa kind of made it there. That blue block down the bottom, that was ours, 3.5 billion. For us, that relates to 54, my brain, 54 billion rand. 37 of that was covered by insurance. And I want to just also stress what Carl said. I love being part of this industry. We do amazing things. When that happened in KwaZulu-Natal, this industry, this group of people brought in more foreign funds than anybody in the rest of South Africa. Not even the government brought in as much funds to get businesses back on their feet, to get human beings back to living. It's a long process, but we brought in that money through our reinsurance agreements and contracts. So I kind of am passionate about what we do, and I'm really glad that we play in this space. The big thing coming out of this as well, and you can see those blue dots, flood is coming through as one of the main players. 11 out of the G20 countries say that flood is on their top 10 list of risks. Flood is equating to about 37% of the nat cats. So, I mean, it's getting to the point now that people want to know what the definition of flood is, like what is a flood and what is a storm. And I'm not going to go into that for you, but just know flood is coming through as the great contender of things. Wider than the wildfires, wider than the hurricanes, it is flood. And guys are talking about atmospheric rivers and water dumps. I mean, what happened to the Western Cape in the beginning of the year was said to have been an atmospheric river that started in Brazil. I mean, this sounds like a romantic telemundo. And then we had a water dump, and we weren't expecting it. So we need to get vastly more prepared, because this is not going away. You can see by the trends, it is not going away. Those pools that we put together cannot deal with this extent of things. So we're going to have to be far more proactive. You know, when I look at America and there's a hurricane, guys know what to do. They really do. They buckle down, they've got their sandbags. I can just talk from personal experience and being in this last flood in the Western Cape. Yes, we were warned. Guys were saying, hey guys, it's a Cat 5. It's going to be hectic. And us Capetanians goes, yeah, it's going to be a storm. Like, you know, it's okay, don't drive on the day. Everyone can work from home. We'll be good. We didn't really understand in like color, what is a level 5 storm? What is a level 5 warning? As a country, we need to get far more descriptive, because it's not just about the damage to assets. It's the damage to human beings, and especially in our world, the socio-economical damages, because flood creates havoc in the poorest of poor. And we don't need that in this country. So we really need to get more proactive. I was actually quite warmed on Wednesday morning listening to the news, as I do sometimes for fun, because they really do keep you entertained. But our government is waking up and is understanding that we need to put money into this warning program. We need to start educating people about what it means and what they should be doing to mitigate loss, to try and look after their assets. And really, that's one of the things we have to do in where we're going to with extreme weather. Demand inflation, I mean, guys talk about normal inflation. What is happening as well, you also have demand inflation. So KwaZulu-Natal, there's normal inflation on build. But when you have the place flattened and everybody's wanting to build at the same time, things start getting costlier because there's more demand. And so this is also putting stress on that. And so it starts really adding up, and you really have to go and start trying to mitigate. Mitigate is going to be, sounds simple, and so I think I'm clever because I'm giving you a simple answer, but it is those simple things that can make a huge difference in terms of using the knowledge that you have and working together. The times we're in also remind me of the saying, I am because you are. And I want all of us to think about what our feet are doing to this world, because this is not a them problem. Extreme weather is coming from climate change. Climate change is driven by our emissions, our footprints being heavy. That's each and every one of us. How many of us are, and I mean, we might be the poster children because of our load shedding. I mean, it might make us the good guys because we're switching the power off, whether we want to do or not, but it might be minimizing our emissions. So, you know, we might be those poster children without trying. But in your own capacity as a human being, how heavy is your footprint? Because as one human being, it might not be doing much, but with all of us together, we are making rubbish dumps bigger, we are putting a lot of emissions out there, and we're creating this drama for ourselves. So hold yourself accountable. Really think about your footprint and think about how light you are. It might be cool to become a fairy in this day and age and just tread lightly and try and fly where you can. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. This one, what worried me about this one, because this, we all know it's getting bigger, it's getting more frequent, and it's just rolling on. The big thing here is where covers are starting to be lost. We found that in KwaZulu-Natal. And actually way back when I used to get shipped into Mariental, because people that have been in the industry for a long time know that Mariental is a little dorp in Windhoek. And every time they had rain and their dams kind of got too full, they would open up the sluice gates and they'd forget to tell the little town at the bottom. And the water came on like a U-bend and Mariental was wiped out. And eventually the insurance guys in the industry said, like, we can't keep doing this on a yearly basis, booze. So there was no more cover for Mariental. But after that, it went quiet. And, you know, we've like played with flood lines, you know, and we like 20 years, 50 years, I'm going to be out of it by that, you know, I'll be retired. I don't have to worry about writing this right now because it's a 50 year. We misunderstand this completely. And what is happening, I mean, to me, looking at KwaZulu-Natal, it is sad, and we all need to own it because we're the guys that can make a difference. It is sad because it's taking so long for the guys to recover. I think people don't understand the length of recovery from extreme weather. You know, when we had the Knysna fires, guys were in there, we helped the human beings, we got everybody sorted. But Knysna is still not back to what it was pre those fires. Durban is far from being back to pre that flood because there's a process. When your whole house is gone, you don't just get to build it again. And in some cases in Durban, you've kind of lost the land that the house was on. So, you know, it's like, so where do I put the house now? Like, do we play a bit of like suspension in the air? So, you know, you've got to go through that process of going to council, getting new building plans. Then you've got to try and get project managers. It is a long process. And if you actually just look at the prices of houses in KwaZulu-Natal at the moment, they are plummeting because of the fact that some of them with the best views cannot get cover from insurances because they're too close to the water. And we can blame Greenland and ice sheets, but it's real. So what are we doing to help? And it is about mitigating and educating and understanding that there must be some other modular stuff we can do here for guys. You almost, you know, when you've been in the industry for a long time, when we used to rate back in the day, we had a thing called a blue book. And you didn't just have one fire rate. You rated perils individually. You rated the things individually. Then life was cool and there was one rate and off we went and we all tried to see who could do it cheapest, bestest, whatever. It has changed. I think we're going to go back to a place where we're going to have to rate individually, especially in the economy that we live in. People are going to have to start choosing what they think their biggest risk is, because we are a risk transfer mechanism. So individuals are going to, and businesses are going to have to make that call as to what is the biggest thing I need to, because it's going to become costly, because those pools, like I said, cannot hold this. If we want to pay normal prices for extreme things, it just doesn't work. So the one thing there that stood out, and this is done by the Australian Climate Society, they said by 2030, which is not really far away, 1 in 25 houses and businesses are not going to actually be insurable. That's frightening, completely frightening. So what is going to be out there for that? And then our friends, and we love them madly, the reinsurers. So reinsurers, obviously, they look at frequency and they look at severity. The latest thing that they're doing, they're bringing in a thing called a time horizon. A time horizon is not the same time horizon that they work at when you are investing. This is really trying to be like looking forward. They're kind of looking at what has happened and what do they think is going to happen. And they're creating some margin in terms of that. And then they're also looking at extremities and how close it gets. The reinsurers are also looking at looking very closely at geometrics. So I'm sure you'll be hearing from an insurer near you very soon that we need longitude and latitude numbers now. It's one of the things, the data things that we are going to have to start collecting is longitude and latitude. We will obviously try and utilize electronic mechanisms to make it easier first, but the reinsurers are really looking at accumulation big time, and they're wanting to know what the exposure is, and they're wanting to know where you are within certain flood lines. And another thing that's also come out, if you look at Durban, there were dams in the mix there. I mean, Durban was the perfect storm because it wasn't just the weather. There were some maintenance issues. There were also dams that weren't built correctly that created. You look at the big floods that happened in Libya. The major mess up there was 2 massive dams collapsed. And there they're talking about cement fatigue. Now you got to ask yourself, do you live not near a dam? You know, do you know if they're maintaining it well? Do you know how old that dam is? Because a lot of our dams were built in like the 60s. You know, not talking about 2023 now, so just like do the maths. So I think they will also be using the geometrics to kind of look at where you are spatially to things that we are now looking at as emerging risks. They're also looking at what your book looks like, what everybody's pool looks like. Is there a very big weighting from a fire point of view? Is there a very big weighting from a weather point of view? And that is how it's getting measured. So as much as a lot of us want to go, it's reinsurance doing this, I can stand in front of you now and tell you between Knysna and between COVID and KwaZulu-Natal, you know, the actual storm, and then obviously the unrest, we can never pay them the amount of money they've paid out. So it's like when you have medical aid and something big goes down, you'll never be able to pay the medical aid back. And that's where we're sitting. So this is just a reality, and we actually need to embrace it. And what we need to do is speak about it. Because if people understand what it's about, then they'll embrace it. It's like I get really mad when people talk about insurance as being a grudge purchase, and we drive this price story. What we do is really noble. What we do is actually let people do their business in really trying times. And we need to really, I think as well, is we've had some awesome examples. So at no other time in the history of the world does everybody actually understand what insurance is about. Before insurance was this thing, that you would easily pay an increase on DSTV, but when someone was trying to get an increase on the insurance, it was like, no, I think we need to talk about this. I think people now are understanding the need and the concept of risk transfer, and conversation and continuous conversation is what changes people's behaviors and acceptance or non-acceptance of things. So for us, you know, the things we are having to really look at is this change in narrative, trying to do more of this, trying to talk about what's going down on all levels, because I'm just touching on one thing. Barry's coming out later and he's got the chat about the modern underwriter and the drama that unfolds there, because there's a lot more than extreme weather that sits in that pocket. Yes, revised pricing models. To me, this is more about getting cleverer and not just about price. I think when I look at adverts on TV and it's all about price, I kind of go, people, you're missing the boat. Talk to the story. I don't know, I'd love to see adverts where they're actually showing you how they put businesses back and the drama of KwaZulu-Natal and how this industry came to the party as a whole. How we have been one of the formidable players in keeping South Africa going. You know, that's what we should be focusing on. So people actually change their opinion of what we do, because it's the wrong thing that's out there. And we tend to, by playing this price story, we tend to actually just make it worse. On the claims side, and Christopher's also going to be up and he's going to take you through that, so I'm not going to kind of steal his thunder, but on the claim side, we really need to get cleverer about those warnings and about giving people enough time to do what they need to do. We really need to start using our techno to kind of go, you're in the way of water, what do we do to help you? Because it is far cheaper to actually do preventative measure than to try and pick up the wreck afterwards. And so we all need to climb in, whether it is us as insurers or whether it is brokers giving knowledge or intermediaries giving knowledge about risks that are out there. So we need to get far more proactive. We also need to start looking at and hiring specialists in this, you know, really getting guys that know what they're doing. And I talk about us and the government included here, and that's why I was so warmed. My heart was warmed when they said they're putting budget, that they're actually going to start this education process, because they know a lot more is coming down the line. And then I think, you know, we've been doing different versions of multi-mark and assets since the days of yore. I do think that we're in exciting times. I mean, right now, you know, we might be having it all and it might be challenging, but it's really exciting. I think to have lived in the period that we are living in right now is exciting. We are in the midst of all this change. We can either hug it and look at really, because this is where innovation happens. Innovation doesn't happen when you're sitting on a yacht, maybe for some people, and you're jawling and life is good. Innovation happens, good innovation, when there's stuff happening and you get sick of it and you think there must be a better way of doing this. And somebody says something, that's when innovation happens. So this is an exciting time. We are going to see, and I'm really hoping, really innovative products coming through in the marketplace because of what is happening in our environment. So in my mind, you're going to see a lot more modular stuff coming through. Like I said, economics as well driving this, that you're going to choose, in your business, what you believe. And that's where the importance of intermediaries are going to come through in terms of, what is available and what is your true risk? What do you need to transfer in a modular spec? And then parametrics. Parametrics is big and alive in the rest of Africa. We seem to be battling in South Africa to get it over the line. But parametrics is a good one. That's where we kind of go, okay, if this and this happens, we'll pay you out. We don't need to know your loss. It's a set amount and set things to happen. So if it rains between this date and that date, and it rains more than that, this is the payout. You don't even have to put a claim form in. We have technology. We can see in your area it rained before that, and Bob's your uncle. There's money in your bank to sort out the things. We're going to have to be fast and proactive and utilize things like that. And for the intermediaries, again, same story, change the narrative, change and share knowledge, share all this information. We really need to be driving the story and what is going down, and driving it in terms that everybody can understand. Everybody can understand, because we talk about severity, we talk about frequency, give examples, let guys see what is going down and what they need to prepare for. Because let me tell you, a business they can be insured to the hilt. No claim is better than even all the insurance in the world. And I'm not talking from an insurance point of view, but for a business, losing market share, having to sort out your suppliers, and especially nowadays, another big thing coming through is BI. BI and suppliers, in terms of all of, because the extreme weather also affects your supply chain. It affects ships being able to travel. So BI claims are going to be seeing, they're going to be much bigger BI claims. In the beginning of time when I used to do this, it was your material damage that was the big thing. That's shifting because of all these other things. BI, you've got to make sure guys are really adequately covered, and especially the time parameters around that. So don't get caught off guard. Bring in oaks, speak to your insurers, get them on site, get them to have conversations with your customers. And also, I'm so glad that there's so many people here today, so many people online. Let's share the knowledge that we have as a community so that we can make this better. And that's all from me. Over and out. I'm going to drop the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Liza. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we are back.
Oh, wow.
A small gift for you. Thank you very much for taking
Is it my
time.
Sauvignon Blanc? Thank you so much. Lekker. Hands. Thank you.
Okay, so we are now going to go over to a short
You're
panel
gonna take this
discussion. It is to understand why it's so important to get your membership with the IISA. Our industry's favorite CEO, Thokozile Mashlango, is going to interview two members, Karel Nolte, and I must just get my note here. We're going to hear from Karel and from Puseletso Makura. We're just going to set up the stage quickly for the panel discussion, and then I'm going to hand over to our panel. Thank you.
combining live and online, because it's very boring for the people who are sitting live watching the stage changing, and you don't have the opportunity like everybody else just to come make a cup of coffee or to tell your colleague, great presentation by Liza, we've got to get onto some of the stuff she spoke about. But so thanks to the guys for bearing with us that are here live. I'm going to hand over to Thokozile, who's going to, before you do anything else, Madam CEO, please introduce our esteemed guest, please.
Thank you, Carol. So we have Puseletso. Puseletso is a fellow, and she's been a fellow for many, many years, and she serves on various committees within the ISA, and she's in the financial services sector, in the retail, MTN, she works for, and she's going to share a bit about what the designation of being an accredited member does for her in her industry and how it sets her apart in that environment. And maybe before she comes in, just to remind you, I know I always sound like a parrot when I talk about the role of a professional body, but it's always important to remind the industry that a professional body like ISA plays a very important role in professional development, as well as setting standards for the profession. And with that, ISA is an accredited, SAQA accredited, and SAQA being the South African Qualification Authority. So with that, it shows the weight of the designation, the level of seriousness of the designation, and the fact that it sets you apart from the rest of the colleagues that are not accredited. It's very important to get the designation, and I'm sure many of us are aware that in the coffee bill, there is a requirement that a professional in the industry is going to have to be accredited, is going to have a designation. So instead of taking a reactive approach later in life when the coffee bill comes into being an act, you better start getting the accreditation now and ready yourself, and not just for the sake of compliance, but really setting yourself apart and showing that you're committed to your professional development and continuing learning.
Yeah, and I think there are many companies that are also making it a requirement for certain positions that you do have a recognized qualification. So it is becoming more and more important. And maybe you can just remind us, what are the different levels that we have?
So there are 3 designations. The entry-level one is a licentiate, and there you need to have been in the industry for a year or 2 and have an NQF 5 qualification. If you don't have a qualification, you need to have been in the industry for at least 5 years. The next one that you can upgrade to if you're starting at licentiate, or you can actually start at that level, is the associate. And there you need to have been in the industry for at least 3 years and have an NQF level 6 qualification. Or you can start at that level with experience if you've been in the industry for over 5 years, but you then have to evidence your skills and expertise. And the highest designation is the fellow level, which is what you hold as well. Puseletso and myself, I'm a fellow myself. And there you need to have an NQF level 7 or higher, and you must have served at least 12 months as an associate before you can get that designation.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the numbers. How many professionals does the ISA estimate we've got in the insurance industry? So people like our previous speaker, myself, many people in this room, we're very passionate about the insurance industry because of the amazing things we do. But I think this is one of the things we do extremely poorly. So maybe give us an idea of the number of professionals versus the number of members.
So according to the FSCA stats, there are over 300,000 professionals. Those are KIs and REs in the financial services sector. And ISA membership base is currently at just over 3,100. That's chalk and cheese. And I always ask, why are you not a member? Why are you not accredited? Why are you focusing on regulatory compliance and not the technical expertise as well, which is what we look at? Why are you not focusing on your professional development, on enhancing your knowledge and skills and remaining relevant in the industry? And if I look at the different levels that we have just over 500 fellows. I mean, that's not right. That's not right. And many of us in this room and online, you are already eligible to become a member. You've got the qualifications, you've got the experience. And the qualifications range from a BCom in economics, in accounting, a BCom in insurance, a diploma in insurance, a higher certificate in insurance, and many other qualifications that enable you to function within the industry and not necessarily a degree in insurance, a degree in law, and many others, management degrees, coupled with insurance. That's what we recognize.
Thank you. So before we going over to hear your story, just a reminder for everybody that's here, there's a team from the ISA at the back there. They can answer any questions you might have about qualifications, can quickly get you signed up. The couple of thousand people online, you can just touch base directly with the ISA's office. The details are on their website. It really is a quick and easy process. It's also easy then for your CPD points. That's on the portal, and it's really something worthwhile considering. And I think to give us a bit of sense about what it means in a career, and again, insurance is so broad, it's not just working at a broker or an insurance firm. Maybe you can share a little bit about your story.
You think?
No?
Oh, thank you. Before I even go my story route, I just want to highlight some of the compelling reasons why obtaining a designation can be a game changer. Because once you give yourself time to join and be active in the institute, people will see that you are serious about your career and your profession, and they will take you seriously as well. So that's one thing that is important, because they understand that pursuing the professional designation needs hard work. It's a long journey. So therefore, you earn respect from them. So one of the things in my case is to say, was like, I know when I apply for a position, put a designation there. It opens a broader range of doors to say, you know what, this is a person with knowledge, skill, rigorous knowledge and skills that she can assist in terms of making the business look better. So in my case, I started as the person who's looking after a certain type of insurance, but because of my designation and my subject matter expert, because designation is a source of power, you use it wisely, you open a lot of doors. Because of that, they realized that, you know what, the board actually said, we need a person who can run the insurance for us as business. They said, but wait, you've got a person who's a fellow, who's part of us. Why can't we ask her to come over? So that's what I'm saying. It opened doors for me. Join the team. Correct, I'm there. But now the key question is, how do we know that whatever she's doing is of quality and good standard? Then thanks to the institute, because you've got access to the subject matter experts, to the industry experts, you've got people that you can reach out to and ask for advice and everything. So with me building that team in terms of frameworks, processes, and structure, I had access to a lot of people to assist me. So that again made me confident to share my work with whoever and to say, this is what I've done. This is why I've done it this way. Why did I have that confidence? It's because I know that I'm with a community of people that actually are experts and they know the trends and they are of assistance. So that is my story.
I think it's a great point, and it is an easy way to set yourself apart. And I think, Thokozile, for you, maybe talk a little bit about the cost, because I think people think, oh my word, it's so much money. But if you hear the benefit for you as an individual in your career, I mean, what is the cost for getting a designation?
Let me start off by saying we are one of the professional bodies that still charge very, very low fees. The minimum is 1,700 for a licentiate, and the highest is about 2,700 for the fellow. Compare that with the SAICA, who charges 9,000 for the designation. That's a year. We are far from it, and I know we are all strained and we complain about the costs. Employers fund the membership fees because it benefits them. And also, for those that don't get that benefit, we offer installment payments, and we are in the process of introducing debit order facilities as well. But I want to emphasize that our fees are still at a level that is far from other professional bodies, including the likes of FPI, IMSA, IOD. We are far from it.
And obviously insurance professionals are far more professional than the accountants and the like. So So that's good news. I mean, I think you gave a great example about a company, taking it seriously when they see the designation and email signature. And this is not a flippant point; it's a genuine point for many people in the insurance industry who salespeople. So many of whom are here, because I found in my case that people will ask you, well, what does that mean? And it's just another point to start talking about what that designation means. It just gives you another entry point with your client, with the intermediary. And so I've also found that aspect useful. In terms of your designation now, what do you do to keep it going? Do you do additional training courses?
Thanks to the institutes again, because there's so many opportunities to keep yourself up to date with the trends, the development within the industry. You attended webinars, you attend conferences, so they actually create a platform for us, and sometimes it's free as a member. So that's what I normally do, to go out there over and above, like reading magazines. But I'm saying from the Institute's point of view, they set up some platforms for us to empower ourselves, network, meet people who will share ideas and experiences with. So that's what we normally do.
Yeah, and I think also, Thokozile, with you and the team at the insurance conference, the AIE that we have annually, putting also more effort into the networking between the designations, the members, creating an opportunity for more sharing. Do you need to be a South African citizen to be a member?
No, it's open to anyone in the continent, anyone in the world for that matter, that's got an aspiration to be accredited by us. And that helps with mobility as well. If you want to move from, say you are outside South Africa, you want to come into South Africa, if you're already a member, it makes it easier to access, because SAQA looks at that as an additional requirement as well. So no, it's not limited to South Africa.
And in your experience, I mean, this is for either one of you, do you think that there's international for this, for the qualification, or the designation rather?
So we do have a partnership with CII, and that partnership gives you the eligibility to be recognized, but you still have to go through a process, of course, to be recognized. There are many professional bodies in the world. We have opted for CII, one, because they're closer to us, two, because we've had working relationships with them for many, many years, and they understand our designations, we understand their processes.
Cool. As we wrap up, any final thoughts that you guys would like to share?
Maybe in closing, I'd like to appeal to everyone in this room or on the line who hasn't joined the Institute to please consider doing that. It gives you power, and then again, you take part in making sure that this profession grows. The speaker just said, what we do is noble. So a designation is not just a title, it's a mark of excellence. So I'm appealing, there are people out there who will do the activation. Let's go and register and have a say in the future of the profession.
Thank you very much, and good luck with your ongoing work at the Institute as well. We are now going to magically, for the online people, play some music and show a slide as we change the stage. Live people will endure that for a minute, and we'll be back with Christelle. Thank you. Here's your pen. Thank you.
Okay, I am now 100% sure my mic is working. We can breathe a little easier. I must just say that I have had many incredibly proud moments in my career. There's no doubt about that. I've had a fantastic career, and I thank this industry for it. But right at the top of my moments of pride is the day that I got my associateship. I can't tell you how much it meant to me, and obviously, I'm going to carry on until I reach the top, which is our next speaker. He is a fellow affiliated with the IISA, another excellent speaker given to us by our headline sponsor today, Bright Insurance, and this is Barry Simmons. Barry is the Regional Underwriting Manager at Bright Insurance in the Western Cape. His career started in 1998. You would never say it when you see him. When he joined Santam Kimberley as a claims clerk. From those beginnings, he has worked in various roles and organizations within the industry, ranging from personal lines underwriting, commercial underwriting, broking, compliance, literally all aspects of the industry. He studied at various institutions, and he considers himself an eternal student. I quite like that. Currently, Barry is, as I said, the regional underwriting manager at Bright in the Western Cape, and he focuses on material damage lines and approaching these risks with purpose. So on that note, I'm going to hand you over to Barry, and he is going to discuss with us this morning underwriting in a changing environment. So over to you, Barry.
Morning, everybody. I'm going to change my format ever so slightly. In typical underwriter fashion, I've made more notes than I can talk to because I overthink everything, and that's why I got the job. So on that note, what I'm going to do is just give you the scope of what we actually have to think about as a modern underwriter, and then we'll come back to it and just touch on a few key points. And this is not an exhaustive list. This is just something that I think every underwriter actually needs to consider to be able to know the market, know what the micro part of it does, how the micro affects the macro, and vice versa, so that you can have intelligent conversations with your market about why you do what you do and why you ask for what you ask for. So, we've got that nice thing that everybody liked talking about for the last 3 years, COVID. We've got power surge and load shedding. And it's important to note that a lot of the topics that we are going to have up on the board here are interrelated. And they communicate with each other, which affects the underwriter's outlook on what he does. Reinsurance, that topic that Liza touched on so nicely, our insurer behavior, reinsurer effects, cover changes, frequency and severity of claims. Don't worry, I'm not going to be reading everything on a PowerPoint slide. We will have a more engaging conversation than that. Load shedding and power surge relationship, solar as an emerging risk with regards to its installation and perils, the relatively stagnant pricing of the short-term industry, cost of claims, those two are also interrelated, the condition of averages is related to that. So everything just tends to flow, and we'll try and get through it all. Please keep in mind, we do only have 20 minutes. If we had to talk in detail about everything, could have a nice long 2-hour session where I could bore you to death. I'm good at that, apparently. So given the international wars and its effect on the global economy, I don't think we'll touch on weather patterns because Liza did cover that sufficiently. Our losses, markets, cost allocations, reinstatements, and solutions. I even went so far as to get some graphics. This is an interesting one which we will talk to in context. This is our load shedding schedule and its frequency of how much it's increased since 2007 to 2023. And it's important to keep this in mind. I think we'll actually just pause there for a while when we go back to the beginning. And this actually created a lot of losses. If I take it in my personal context, in the Western Cape, first half of the year, we suffered 9 fire claims. All of those were risks we would write again. There was nothing wrong with our risk selection. In one way or another, indirectly or directly, those fires were started by load shedding. And 9 fires is significant. So we'll come back to that. Another thing we would have to touch on is our exchange rate, which the underwriter needs to keep in mind because this affects your claims costs. So just a quick highlight there from 2022, Rand to dollar, 15 Rand 81 to where we find ourselves now. Please keep in mind that when it comes to motor claims, we import most of our costs, most of our parts. So automatically, just by virtue of inflation, your claims cost has increased by almost, what, 4 Rand. Something to keep in mind. Okay, so bear with me while I switch my phone back on where my notes are and we can get started. Okay, so when I started back in 1998, it was a fairly simple thing to be an underwriter. You had a loss ratio that you had to write to. That was about as basic as it gets. And that loss ratio was 63%. If you could keep your book or your policy under 63%, you were doing okay as an underwriter. And that's about as much as you want to know. Use your underwriting guide to make sure that you stay within the lines, and there you go. But that's not that simple anymore. We find ourselves in a hard market, trying to make a hard sell with price increases. And I think that if we're going to have meaningful conversations about why we are increasing our prices, the underwriters need to be equipped with the right information, and we need to be fully transparent about that. And that's the change between what the old underwriter and the modern underwriter has to do, because it's collaborative. We were prescriptive back in the day. If you didn't like my 63% loss ratio, sorry, you can go to the market, see what else you can find. And everybody wrote along similar lines. And that's not really where we find ourselves anymore. Also, with so many new emerging risks, underwriters need to properly keep abreast of what can affect their loss ratio, because something that didn't affect it last year could affect it this year. And that's why we had the topic of COVID up there. It's changed underwriter attitudes. When you think about COVID and the massive impact it had on not just the insurers, but the reinsurers, it really created a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction, or what would be perceived as a knee-jerk reaction. But it was massive losses. And to be quite honest, the insurers and reinsurers did not price to settle communicable diseases on the scale that we had to. It was a cat-level event, but was priced at a localized single shop. You're going to have a claim, BI paid out, we're good to go. And hardly a movement in the dial when it comes to your loss ratio. And I do have to harp on loss ratio a lot, because just for context, my definition of an underwriter is the guardian of loss ratio, which is a mark of profitability. So we are going to touch on profitability and use those terms quite often. Right, so COVID hit, billions paid out. As Liza discussed, we had to knock on the reinsurer's door, brought lots of money back into the market to reignite our economy, but the reinsurers have a relatively large memory, long-term memory, so they keep that in mind. Then we had, just before that, George and Neisner, and that was a good couple of billion as well. Then we had the KZN floods, then we had civil unrest, then we had the Western Cape floods, and the hits keep coming. Now, it's important to note the reinsurers are businesses. They expect a return. So when we consistently make losses due to our books of business, it has to come from somewhere. And unfortunately, the scope and level of the increases that we see from the reinsurers is of the magnitude that it cannot be subsidized by the insurer. It can't. Quick example, if there's a 15% premium change from the reinsurer on your treaties, the simplest form of math says that that should equate to a minimum of a 3% rate change on the actual end client. And that is with your insurer being extremely friendly and subsidizing a large portion of those costs. So when we look at what 2023's negotiations look like, where the reinsurers use terms like double, double, half, meaning double the premium, double the deductible, half the cover. You understand that that then translates into we can't subsidize that. And that's why we find ourselves in a hard market. And it's those little pieces of information that the underwriter on the ground needs to be made aware of, needs to understand, so that when there is the inevitable pushback because of the price changes being pushed forward at renewal, you can have a meaningful conversation about why are we doing what we're doing? Well, we'd like to be sustainable. And if we don't, and if we continue subsidizing these increases on behalf of the client, we won't be. Because that translates into a conversation about, we can use a mathematical example. So some insurers measure their profitability on a combined ratio, right? So let's say you wanted to make 5 cents on the rand. It's a fairly thin margin, should be relatively simple to secure. So we'll use Bright's loss ratio prescribed at being 55% or less to be a profitable book. So we allocate 55 cents to claims. We're left with 45. Because of increased reinsurance costs, we probably pay away about 6 cents on the rand. So another 6 cents minus. I unfortunately run a very property-heavy book, which means that my commission is another 18 cents off. I also operate a lot of scheme facilities and binder facilities, so I minus another 7 cents. I've not yet paid any salaries. I've not yet paid my shareholders 5 cents. And I've not paid for IT or rent or So it is a tricky proposition. And in order to bring those costs down and make them manageable, we need to operate in a hard market as if it is a hard market. Because it is not only a hard market for the end user, it is a hard market for the insurer. And these are, again, the conversations that we need to be able to have. We are not trying to sell price increases for the sake of profit. It's a sustainability thing. We've seen players exit the market in recent times. People are dropping capacity. I get approached quite often about people who are no longer participating on collective lines. This is a reality. We've seen AIG pull out. We've seen who else is gone. There's been a couple, right? We're not here to talk about the competition. Let's just keep the topic about pride. So, let me just see what else we had to chat about here. Okay, so we kind of touched on COVID and the knee-jerk reaction that it's had. And I just wanted talking about interrelatedness. When we look at what has happened with the power grid exclusion, the grid failure, right? That is related to COVID. Because as soon as that happened, the insurers and the reinsurers had to go look at, are we at risk of another level event of that level affecting us? Because we can't afford another one. And what did they come on? Grid failure. So we react quickly, we're agile, we get rid of that because we want to be sustainable, because we are not geared or priced towards paying an entire country's claims at the same time. It would ruin the industry. So that's why I wanted to bring COVID up, because it's responsible for some of the changes that you're seeing. So we do further analysis and we look at load shedding and power surge. Now, 2-3 years ago, everybody was giving power surge cover away for free. Right? Now, go back to that other graph when we see how the load shedding is increased. Keep in mind that it's not just the direct power surge losses that we're talking about. It's incidental and indirect fires. So those happen in SMEs. So now you don't approach SMEs, which used to be your bread and butter. You want SMEs. It's a good foundation for you to have because your large accounts are always under attack. Now you actually start looking at, where I didn't incur survey or risk engineering costs, I might actually have to send somebody out. Do you have a COC? Are you packing within a meter of your DB board? I didn't think of that when I started back in 1998. It was, you're a corner shop. This is the rate that I'm supposed to apply. This is your loss ratio. It's acceptable. On we go. You can't think about things so simplistically anymore. The modern underwriter has to know how it can affect him and how it can affect on a macro level. So we've also seen people being a lot more risk selective this year. Where I might have written a woodworking risk last year, no thank you. Plastic injection molding, it's clean, but no thank you. And you need to understand the why. So if we apply the 80-20 principle, I know that when my head office colleagues go and negotiate treaties for us, the treaty reinsurers look at what's on my books and how heavily it is pushed in any particular direction, low risk grades, high risk grades. The more high risk grades I have, which should be no more than 20% of my book, pushes the price up for everyone because they don't differentiate between the costs. You have your treaty costs and supplied. So if I keep pushing on that 20 and I load more than 20 or I load too close to 20, it affects the overall price and the 80% get negatively affected because if, for example, the reinsurers apply the 15%, the 3% change that comes to the end user is not just on the 20, it's across because it's a game of large numbers. So that's kind of how I try to teach my underwriters to think. And let's see, where else have we got? Large loss definitions, also in a changing environment. Just want to touch on that quickly. Historically, when we were working from 1998 onwards, you used to think about R1 million as being a large loss. Not so much anymore. That's a Hilux, right? And I mean, I'm a Toyota fan, but that's not a large loss. So your actual number moves. So if we consider a large loss to be 7.5 million rand, and we have to be clear about having a definition for it. Because once you move past the basics, then we start looking at IBNR and attritional and how that affects XOL. And if my definition is not correct, it gets my attritional wrong, which increases my incurred but not reported, which affects my profitability. So those old definitions also, we need to get rid of some of them so that we can more properly rate and properly price and forecast because of the effects that it has. Sorry if that is delving a bit too deep into stuff, but I did try and avoid economics. So I'm not going to bore you completely. Right? Liza's touched on the risk selection. Margin is one more thing I want to touch on. Like I said, I did over-prepare for this, so I am jumping around a bit, but I am mindful of time. So just touching one last time on the reinsurers, right? So when we talk about that double half, we need to think about the context of how that affects an organization. You have a cat level loss. Yes, you've got cat cover, that's great, they reinstate you. But reinstatement now costs, let's say, depending on the size of the insurance company, from 50 million to 75 million for a reinstatement. Historically, you used to do that once. Now with these really extreme weather events, you don't know whether it's going to be once. But that 50 to 75 million rand is an expense line that you need to cater for and build margin for. Because you might do it once, or you might actually have to make a call and say, I'm only allowed to do it once, but that's still 75 million rand coming out of your bottom line, paid away. How do you get 75 million rand? Price change. We need to build margin. So we need to be very cognizant of the fact that we are in a hard market, and there are very real reasons why we do what we do when it comes to price change. And again, like I said, I'm not wanting to reinforce that everything needs to go up for no particular reason or for profitability. These are real financial concerns, financial constraints for sustainability. Because we would like to be in the future to be able to offer that risk transfer mechanism. But if we don't take it seriously and do the necessary, I don't know how sustainable that future is. I think that for now, that will cover our 20 minutes. There'll be questions at the end. Thank you, everybody. I hope that that was not too much or too little. Cheers.
Okay, Barry, thank you very much for that. I think both Liza and Barry gave us a very thorough overview of what we are facing as an industry. And we were having a bit of a conversation we started this morning, and we were discussing the next big hailstorm and the impact that is going to have on solar panels. We've been very good at finding our own source of power, but how is that going to play out when we have to deal with not only massive damage to vehicles like we saw about a decade ago, but also solar panels. And then as I was driving to the airport yesterday, I heard the mayor of Hermanus speak on the radio, and she was saying that there is no water in Hermanus. When they went up to the mountain, they could not believe the damage to infrastructure as a result of the floods. So we certainly are facing very, very interesting times as an industry. It is now my great pleasure to welcome back onto our stage here, not just on the virtual stage as we had before, but in person. I would say somewhat of a celebrity in our industry. We've got Christopher Rapana up next. He is the head of claims liabilities at Bright Insurance. And I do think he is best known for being the winner of the Insurance Apprentice of 2023. As I said, he serves as the head of claims liabilities at Bright. And he has a background with a background as a legal practitioner and an LLM in corporate law. His primary interests lie in insurance and leadership, and he's deeply dedicated to advancing talent development within the insurance profession, and he does it himself so well. So please join me in welcoming Christopher onto the stage, and we look forward to your topic, which is the future of claims innovation in insurance. Thank you.
Thank you, Christel. Good morning. I am a cancer survivor. Now, before we get into the topic, I want to relay a conversation I had with my oncologist, Dr. Cohen, at the time. The conversation was about my survival. And in order to give me a sense of comfort, he said the following. He said that medical technology had advanced through the collaboration and data sharing of medical professionals so that treatment could be personalized depending on a patient's severity of disease. He ended the conversation by saying, "You'll likely survive." And here I am 5 years later presenting to you on the future of claims innovation in insurance. Now, you're probably wondering, what does that conversation have to do with this talk? When I sat down to prepare for this talk today, my mind went immediately to that conversation with Dr. Cohen. And I realized that Dr. Cohen had mentioned 4 key themes: technology, collaboration, data, and personalization. And so these 4 themes will form the basis of the talk that I will give to you today. When people think about innovation, they think about technology and an almost Terminator-esque insurance landscape in 50 years' time where all of us are dead and machines have taken over. Think Matrix. But the innovation that I'm going to be talking to you today will cover these 4 pillars in front of you. They will speak to digital transformation and automation, data analytics and predictive modeling, customer centricity and personalization, and lastly, ecosystem collaboration and integration. Now, most of you are probably sitting in the audience right now thinking to yourselves, this is what we do in our companies currently. And you're right, I agree, but we're all in our infancy. And so I want to go into each of these particular topics in greater detail, looking into what we can look forward to in the future. Now, there has been a paradigm shift. We all can agree, and that was largely catalyzed by the COVID-19 pandemic as well as the associated lockdowns. What we saw were companies rolling out digital transformation strategies in a matter of days. I mean, it was amazing. You had a laptop allocated to you. In 5 days, you were set up, you were done, ready, so that your business could continue. We also saw companies using new technology in order to engage with employees as well as our customers. In fact, the Journal of Engineering Sciences, and I'm paraphrasing here because I can never remember the exact quotes, but the journal says that companies that are open to change are more susceptible, it's far more easier for them to adopt new technology. Now, you're probably wondering, what does this all have to do with claims? Now, you've guessed it, I'm going to be talking about AI and RPA, so artificial intelligence and robotic process automation at this point of the talk. A thorn in the side of most insurers right now is the rising cost of claims. We're all trying to beat that. And so The idea is that we want to find ways, and technology is one of those things that we could do and use in order to mitigate and reduce that average cost of claims. Take Lemonade, for example. It's an insurance company based internationally, able to resolve a claim within 2 seconds this year from start to finish to payment. That's all checks done. Imagine how, and that was done through AI and automation. And can you imagine how the cost of actually working on that claim was reduced dramatically? The thing about AI and RPA automation is that they are geared towards reducing your average cost of claims. Imagine a situation where your claims staff have free time to focus on the things that actually matter, like, well, complex claims or strategic initiatives, all because you've implemented a technology that frees up their time. It goes without saying that in a world that is digitally transforming, so too should insurance companies. We should transform digitally in as quick as the world is doing that currently. Now, a little more. Let's get into the specifics here. When we look at AI, AI is known to reduce the amount of time it takes to process a particular claim. And I've spoken to the amount of time that gets freed up. Especially in a time, this is an instant age. You have millennials like myself who submit a claim to our insurance companies. Yes, I have an insurance policy, and want that claim to be settled as soon as possible. I don't want to be constantly going back and forth. And so with the use of AI, and like we've seen in the case of Lemonade, a client, all they had to do was submit pictures, fraud checks were done, the damage was assessed, and the payment was made in 2 seconds. That's incredible. It actually blew my mind, and I thought to myself, they're lying. It's probably a PR stunt. When it comes to fraud specifically within South Africa, 20% of claims paid out yearly is said to be fraudulent, and that's according to the South African Insurance Crime Bureau. Through the use of AI and machine learning, and I got ragged on this at the Insurance Apprentice for not speaking about it in great detail, and I won't do it today. I will be available after this to actually have a conversation with everybody because I'm mindful of time. But with the combination of AI with machine learning, the idea is that you have a system that's able to receive claims and increase the accuracy with which hits are made on specific matters that might be fraudulent. Your immediate benefit is the accuracy of fraud detection, and then the subsequent benefit is the non-payment of that claim, thus reducing your average cost of claims. And that's what we actually are aiming for right now. When we look at RPA, I see RPA as a step toward AI. RPA is robotic process automation. The idea is to automate any processes that can be done more efficiently and more quickly, and not actually be, I'm sort of missing the word here, but not have your claim staff, spend their time on very admin-heavy tasks. Now in South Africa, what we are seeing is that RPA and AI is gaining traction. But in the future, what I envisage is that we will have insurance companies automating whole processes and using AI for claims handling up to a point, and freeing up your claims staff time to focus on more strategic initiatives as well as the more complex claims into the future. Now, The impact and benefits I've gone into quite greatly, and they can be summarized as follows. Faster turnaround time. You want your claims processed as quick as possible. We sell a claim service. Improved accuracy, especially related to fraud rates. You're reducing your fraud rates. You're catching that 20% of potential fraud as quick as possible. Now compare what your current percentage of fraud identification and mitigation is at your company, and consider what AI can do for you. The other benefit is an enhanced customer experience. The time to process a claim is reduced massively. But then also, and I don't have it here, employee delight. You have a work staff that is happy to stop focusing on often very admin-heavy, bureaucratic, I've heard this being called once, nonsense. Now, the next topic is actually a real passion of mine. Data analytics speaks to using data in a way that it optimizes certain efficiencies and also processes and increases certain outcomes. Now, in my day job, I look after recoveries at Bright, more recently the salvage team. When I joined the team, the first question I asked them was, give me all of your data. And they were confused, understandably. And one of the questions I got was, why do you need this? I mean, we're performing quite well. And I said to them, you know what? Just set a meeting, it'll become apparent. So I had a look at the data and I started asking them all of these questions. And sure enough, everybody started to understand why and where I was going to with this. You see, data analytics is just that. It's about asking the right questions with the information that's in front of you. And so that you can then determine what patterns and trends come out of that and what you can actually do in terms of an initiative to improve certain operational or strategic inefficiencies. What stemmed from this meeting with my team was a data model, a data-driven model for recoveries. We were able to increase our recoveries by 30% year on year. 30%, and I think this is not small money. It's quite a large amount of money that we were able to do that. We looked at the patterns and trends and leveraged those to optimize our recovery processes, as well as how we did recoveries. We moved away from the traditional model of doing recoveries. We then looked at the peaks and troughs of our recovery stream. We identified certain risks that were contributing to those troughs. We unknowingly built a very rudimentary predictive model just by asking simple questions. The net effect of that was we put in place strategic initiatives to mitigate those risks that caused those troughs at the time. The thing is that data analytics is like having a crystal ball of data, which, if used innovatively, is able to chip away at your average cost of claims. Liza mentioned earlier on, and I've actually had to write this down. She mentioned something about using claims data, and that's actually the second component to what we're currently working on right now. Claims data can actually provide you with specific insights on a region-by-region basis, based on the types of claims that may emanate from a particular area more often than not. So, for example, if you have many clients who are rear-ending everybody that they come into contact with, it means that there might be a certain level of anti-selection happening by your brokers. And so you take sort of proactive measures to ensure that that does not continue. you identify trends which can actually help your BDMs, your regional managers, as well as the company at large, to write risks differently. Now, customer centricity. There is an audience member here. One of my first stories is going to refer to Mr. Simon Coleman. Now, many years ago, I was a young insurance professional, and we had to shoot a video relating to what our company did. Now, after he told me that I needed to apply lip ice or Vaseline to my teeth so that my lips wouldn't stick together due to my nervousness, he, he then told me a story that he heard, a little anecdotal story about claims that he received from Mr. Hutchinson at the time. And Simon said to me, an insurance policy is an inert piece of paper until a claim happens. And that's stuck with me. I think it's probably 6 or 7 years now. It's stuck with me because that is what we do. We sell a claim service. And the point of me talking about customer centricity is that I'm not saying that we are not a customer centric industry. We are. What I'm talking about in terms of innovation is becoming customer-centric and putting customers at the center of what we do by catering to individual, unique needs. So not looking at them in groups any longer. Think about personalization. Think about communication channels, customers being able to choose how they want to communicate with you, when they want to communicate with you, how they want to receive information from you. Think about your customer-facing procedures. How do you simplify that for them? I mean, recently I had to submit a claim. It's a very strange claim, and I had to send an email to get a link to fill out a form so that I could attach further documents. Needless to say, I canceled the policy. Now, happy customers are at the core of what we do. And at claim stage, you need to consider that in the future, customers are going to want to be able to do those things. They're going to want to be able to tell you, you contact me like this. I want to receive an SMS in the morning, an email in the afternoon. You can call me when I'm having my dinner. In fact, personalization should go down to, and this is just a personal opinion, to the very color of the font that customer wants to interact with you. Think about your Gen Zs right now coming into the market and how they would ordinarily want to interact with the world around them. Now, I forgot to do that. Another really passionate topic, thing that I'm quite passionate about is talent development. Now, like I said earlier on, we sell a claim service, and that service is discharged by our talent within an organization. There was a survey done by PwC in 2019 that said that 81% of insurance-based professionals like yourselves were concerned about insurance talent in the future. Our reliance on technology should not overshadow the moments that matter. Right? We have this adoption of technology coming into the insurance space. So you need to make sure that your current talent, you don't let them go, you train them to use the technology. Right? So that's the first part. But what about the moments that matter? What happens now is that gone or slowly the days of scripted insurance sales ends, right? Customers will now interact with your companies on a more virtual basis using digital technology. And so it's soft skills that matter. When a claim goes a weird way, who is going to deal with that client? Personally, I like to scream at people over the phone. I hate trying to email you and I cannot get a hold of you. I want to scream at you. And so you're going to have those customers that are going to want to do that. And so skills development, soft skills development become important. Compassion, empathy, communication. How do we resolve conflicts? Those are the things that I'm talking about when it comes to talent development. Now, like I said, and I keep saying this, and if you follow me on LinkedIn, I always say this, we sell a claim service. And so when we look at innovation, and I said this at the beginning, it's not only about technology, it is also about our people. And we need to look at how do we innovatively apply strategic initiatives to train and develop them to be ready for this new world. Now, lastly, collaboration and integration. When I talk about collaboration and integration, I am talking about looking beyond our immediate borders into ecosystems that exist within insurance, either already existing or even creating them for ourselves. 22% of European insurers in 2018 said that they'd ventured and collaborated into partnerships within insurance ecosystems that allowed them to provide additional services to their clients. Now, let's consider, and this is something that's really bursting at the moment within South Africa, but a current insurance ecosystem collaboration happening. It is the collaboration between traditional insurers and InsureTalks. Now, by leveraging the systems of InsureTalks, such as AI and RPA, like I've mentioned earlier on, you can either, use what they have and apply it in partnership, so have your InsureTech run your claims process, or you can learn from them. You can take what they have, their AI, their RPA, tweak it a little bit, and have it fit for purpose for your business. That old adage, not reinventing the wheel, comes to mind. It's just about making sure that in your collaboration and partnership, you are always learning from each other. InsureTechs should not be seen as a threat to traditional insurance companies. They should be seen as vital partners. Now, in terms of interconnectedness, what I mean here essentially is that imagine I suppose an ecosystem. I love using the word ecosystem. Imagine this ecosystem where you are collaborating with an InsureTech or with each other, bearing in mind competition rules, and we hope that changes in time. But there's a seamless flow of information between organizations that allows for quick claims processing as well as really quick really quick resolutions to grander insurance issues that we might be experiencing. Now, that then brings me to my conclusion, and to sort of summarize the 5 pillars that I've mentioned so far, I'd like to say that we need to embrace digital transformation. We need to leverage data. We need to prioritize our customers. We need to invest in talent, and we need to collaborate in an ecosystem. My call to action to all of you is that we partner together, we take action, we innovate, and we pave the way for an amazing claims management ecosystem within insurance in South Africa. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Christopher, for an amazing journey from lip ice on teeth to amazing digital innovations, and that we don't have to be scared of what's happening in the world at the moment. So we are almost reaching the end of the day. We've just got a few more speakers. I would like you to stand up and just for a second, say hello to your neighbor if you have one. Please stand up. Just stretch your legs a little bit. I want to do a Pilates stretch here, but I won't do that. Say hello, smile. There we go, there we go. I'm not doing a Pilates stretch. Okay. And while you are stretching, okay, you can sit down again. Just take a nice breath in and a nice breath out. Okay, everyone, let's settle down. I just want to remind you that we've got some entertainment after the event today. We're going to mingle a little bit upstairs. Sorry for the virtual attendees, you can't join us. So please don't just go. This is all about networking and coming together and saying hello to your neighbors. So do please join us. We're on to our next speaker. Very excited to welcome Samantha Williams to the stage. She's the Head of Legal and Regulatory Affairs at the FIA. Sam worked in a compliance role, our favorite people. Really, they are actually our safety net in this industry. Sam worked in a compliance role in the financial services industry for the last 20 years, 12 of which, lucky she is, she spent in the United Kingdom. During this time, her specific experience related to the long-term insurance industry and investment space, but she's covered multiple disciplines throughout her career. Samantha obtained her LLB from the University of Witwatersrand in 1998. She joined the FIA in September of 2019, right before the pandemic, as Head of Legal and Regulatory Affairs. She is going to talk to us today on the topic of give us an update on the status of key regulatory developments from an intermediary perspective. I am very interested to hear all about this. So please help me to welcome Sam stage.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to Christelle for making me feel inordinately old. But also a big thank you to InsureTalk for the invitation to share the scope of work of the FIA, what we're currently busy with, who we are, and the current regulatory drivers that will impact advisory businesses over the next few years. As many of you will be aware, the FIA is a non-profit organization founded and funded by members. And in contrast to Thokozile's explanation of a professional body, we are a trade association and we actually represent businesses. So we currently represent more than 1,700 FSPs and 12,000 key individuals and representatives. Our primary objective is to promote the collective interests of professional advisory businesses with a broad range of stakeholders for the benefit of members and clients. As we mentioned, the FIA is funded by intermediaries who understand the landscape of insurance and they understand that it's changing. And we recognize that economic growth in the South African context is critical if we want to grow and sustain the businesses of our members. There's urgent intervention needed to upskill and reskill not only ourselves as the trade association, but our members to meet the changing demands from clients as well as the changing risks. The FIA, in order to sort of meet our mandate and support our members, have 8 dedicated structures through which we do this. There are 8 executive committees. They span across the disciplines that we represent, which are healthcare, employee benefits, non-life, financial planning, and discretionary investment management. And then we also have sort of subject matter specific disciplines, which include transformation, education and training, and membership. The representatives who sit on these committees consist of industry experts in their specific disciplines, but also are subject matter experts, and they bring a wealth of of knowledge and experience to the table in those engagements. And we work collaboratively across those committees on the various projects, whether those are regulatory papers that are issued for consultation, issues that impact the industry. We're currently engaging on the challenges that we're experiencing around cover subjectivity and the number of exclusions in the marketplace. And it is a direct result of those engagements with our members, with regulators, that we really bring that broad range of experience to the table, and we look at driving impactful solutions and innovations. When we meet with regulators, both in South Africa and internationally, what they tell us is that we're really, as intermediaries, we are the closest voice to the client. And so that we actually have to bring that client voice to the discussion. They don't only want to hear from product providers. They really want to understand what the issues are. But what we need to bring are solutions to the table, because that is fundamental to changing the environment. Very often regulators don't work in the environment in which we work, and we need to help educate and help drive the change forward, both to improve the industry and to bring down that burden of regulation. And ultimately shape the future of our industry. I think what's been incredible to me in terms of working at the FIA is that although brokers on their own are incredibly competitive, they really are excellent at collaborating and driving solutions. Being also that our representation is diverse, we have businesses down to the sole man proprietor of one person to some of the biggest players, both in the South African and international markets. So we really can have a balanced view, not only from a scale perspective, but also because of the different disciplines that we represent, we get to see the whole cross-section of the industry. And really that brings a lot of influence to the table, both with government and with regulators on all different types of developments. And so I think for me at this point, it's really important to acknowledge these structures that we have and the members who support them. We can't do what we do without our members. For me, it's always the same drive whenever we're having a discussion around a new piece of legislation or something that's impacting the market. Those voices of those members and those players around us are absolutely fundamental. We don't know what's happening in your businesses on the ground. I can look at it holistically and I can understand that there's an impact. But what is going to matter to a sole proprietor versus one of our larger members are going to be very completely different. Someone who's got systems versus someone who runs everything on paper has totally different challenges in their business. So for us to be able to understand how diverse the landscape is that we work in is fundamentally important. And we are so grateful to our members and partners who support all our efforts. We really couldn't do it without them. So what are we solving for? A lot of the things that you're going to see here are common across the industry. The increased cost of compliance. Yes, Christelle, you told me about compliance. We all hate them. That's why I moved out of it directly. we do our best, but it's hard being the business prevention unit. Diluting the voice of intermediaries, access to market. These are constant conversations that we're having with our members. Brand protection, advancing innovation and reskilling members. I think a number of our previous speakers have touched on the importance of this. We cannot stagnate. We have to move forward. Retaining talent and intellectual capital. This is another one. On an international scale, we are members of the World Federation of Insurance Intermediaries. We think this is a South African problem. It's not. Every single trade association and every intermediary we speak to on an international scale, from the US to Europe to America to India, to pretty much everywhere, are facing this challenge. So that's a huge focus area for us, making sure that we can do everything we can to professionalize the industry, to upskill the industry, to make sure that we are keeping abreast of changes in technology. Ethical and professional conduct is also something that we advocate for so strongly. We want to be perceived as an ethical industry if we want to attract talent, and to also be able to promote the industry as a professional career of choice. I think that is a particular challenge, especially where we're looking at the structures we do around commission earnings and the challenges for new entrants into the market. It really is a difficult sell in the current economic climate, and I think we feel very strongly that brokers are the gateway to entrepreneurship and play such a fundamental role in the industry that these are really, really important things for us. But as I said, these are also really, really important things for the industry as a whole. And there's a need for business to step in and participate and find solutions to alleviate these challenges that we're facing. From a broader South African perspective, we can already see the benefit of a collaborative approach from the BUSA, or Business for South Africa initiative with government, and the pledge of a number of very well-known household name businesses to work with government to try and find solutions specifically at the moment on stabilizing the grid, reducing load shedding, improving freight logistics, dealing with crime and corruption. And I think we can really start to see, just in the last few months, very incrementally, small changes. We can't fix it all straight away. We understand it's a journey. We've got lots and lots of broken things as a country, as an industry, that need to get fixed. But if we work together to find solutions and take these opportunities to step in and protect our industry, and I refer to what Liza mentioned in her speech, is that it will take us all working together to make a difference. And we really do feel very, very strongly about that. It isn't just about intermediaries, it's about the product providers. It's about everybody in the value chain working together. So that really is something that we feel incredibly strongly about. I'm now going to take you through, and it really is going to be a whistle-stop tour of some of our current and ongoing work, and also an insight into some of the things that we perceive to be real wins for the industry over the last couple of years. These are very high level. It is by no means an exhaustive list, but I think many of them are topical, important to us as South Africans currently, and so we've picked a few of these to discuss. National health insurance. You may wonder why it matters to you. I think for all of us as South Africans, this is a fundamentally important conversation. We as the FIA have made substantive submissions on the bill. We've engaged at a parliamentary level. We've had members recently presenting at the provincial public hearings. We really and fundamentally support the view that universal health coverage is not negotiable. What we don't agree with is the current remit of the bill, the way that it is written. We don't believe that it will deliver that universal health coverage. And taking into account that solutions-driven approach, we have really worked to put together detailed proposals around what we think would far better achieve universal coverage for South Africa, and we've unpacked the bill in its entirety and provided alternative proposals, not simply saying, no, we can't accept this and we can't take it forward. So that conversation is ongoing. We also work, we are members of Business Unity South Africa, and we're represented at their table to make sure that we can ultimately have the best possible outcome for all South Africans. It is a fundamental and key conversation. From a Conduct of Financial Institutions Bill perspective, or COFI, I'm always scared of using acronyms. I presume people know things, and then I run polls and meetings and discover that people just don't. We have so many acronyms in our industry that I am humbled and will start and try as much as possible to stop using them. So most of the industry won't have seen much movement on COFI since 2020, when it was last issued for public consultation. That doesn't mean that there hasn't been a huge amount of work ongoing behind the scenes. There have been further iterations and further drafts. We as the FIA have participated through BUSA at NEDLAC with the various social partners on engaging on what those changes are and the impacts to the industry. I'm pleased to say that we've certainly seen some traction in terms of some of the comments that we've made. And we had anticipated that the bill would be tabled in Parliament by the end of the year. There was a big push from Treasury. However, that really is looking likely now, especially with the move towards elections, and very, very possibly we may not even see it tabled in Parliament until after elections. But I don't think that that means it isn't going to move ahead. What it is going to mean when it does come into effect is a huge disruption to the industry. It is a whole-scale change. It is the biggest change we will have seen since the advent of phase and some of the other industry-specific legislation introduced many years ago. The regulator believes that there will be a minimum transition period of about 6 years. I personally, and I think within our committees, we're in agreement that it is a much longer journey than that. All of the existing legislation virtually is going to have to be repealed and going to be replaced by conduct standards. I live in hope that we're not going to follow the journey of some of our African counterparts who have introduced 157 different conduct standards to replace their existing legislation. The industry is overburdened. We cannot cope. That will be way too much. I'm pleased to say that as the FIA, we are going to be sitting on the FSCA's working committee on the transition towards the implementation of COFI, and we'll have a voice at the table. Christelle mentioned that I had worked in the UK for 12 years. I am a very strong believer in the UK FCA handbook and how it works and how it functions in the industry. And if we can move to a model that works like that, I think it will ultimately be something, once all the pain is over, that will benefit the industry greatly. And I'm also, again, in support of a move to an outcomes-based approach, particularly considering the diversity of our membership and the need to take an equitable approach to regulation. The omni-conduct of business returns, this is something that we all got into a terrible state about towards the end of last year. Myself and my colleagues spent an inordinate number of hours looking at this piece, this draft proposal around these reporting requirements from the regulator that will literally impact every regulated financial services entity. It's not just intermediaries, it's credit providers, it's banks, it's insurers. The insurers have had a taste of it, but this has got bells and whistles on at every level. We know that now, following our substantial submissions and those of other industry associations, that the regulator is completely revisiting those returns. And we're expecting that we'll see a completely revised version come about April 2024. I'm really hoping that they've taken our comments on board. I'm really hoping that they've reconsidered the quarterly reporting, which is overly onerous. I always, when I say the quarterly reporting, heads lift up in an audience. I'm really hoping they will revisit that and reconsider that approach. But what I would say is, regardless of which sector in the financial services industry you play, familiarize yourselves with those when they come, engage, participate in the pilot, because it is only in that way that you will have an opportunity to actually shape what that is going to look like in the future. Cybersecurity and cyber resilience, not only important for our members, but for us as South Africans, as a country. This is one of the top risks, actually was the top risk before grid failure for South Africa. We are exposed on a daily basis to cybercrime. And so we are currently looking as the FIA at solutions to support our members of all sizes through this particular journey to protect both their and their customers' data. It is fundamentally important. Again, on a financial sector transformation perspective, we're working on developing transformation guidelines for our members to help them transform their businesses and provide them with practical solutions on how to do that. Everybody can read legislation, but particularly on the smaller end of the scale, people just trying to do their jobs, they don't really know what they need to do, and the small steps that they can actually take on a day-to-day, weekly, monthly basis to really bring in true change to their businesses. We're also working with partners to address access to market faced by some of our Black broker members. And these are really fundamentally important conversations. We have to embrace that collaborative approach. We have to have diversity in our marketplace. That is the only way we can grow South Africa as an economy. It really is truly such an important engagement. Moving a little bit back to health, the low-cost benefit option guidelines and the prescribed minimum benefits. Again, a very important one for our members operating in the healthcare space. We've engaged extensively on these. We have members operating in these committees. We worked very hard to remove proposals on the table in relation to the demarcation products, to reduce the emission cap from 20% to 3%. And I'm pleased to say that as a consequence of those engagements, we were able to move that deadline forward to March 2024, and we are currently having active engagements whereby we're hoping to ensure that until those low-cost benefit options are on the table, that deadline is further pushed out. On the Employment Equity Amendment Bill, we know it was signed into law by the President, but the date of promulgation has not come yet. And therefore, the Department of Employment and Labour has not yet published any regulations. Regardless of that, we implore businesses to really look to bring in the changes to your businesses. Look to see how you can actually drive your business towards those targets. We recognize from an intermediary perspective that what is currently proposed is not specifically achievable, just in terms of a journey that a broker has to go through to get to the level where these targets are potentially achievable. But it is an important journey, and it is a conversation that we need to have, and we need to ensure that the industry is progressing forward as a whole in terms of achieving these. Nevertheless, as a consequence of our engagements, both through BUSA and with other industry associations, when these proposals were originally put on the table, the minister was going to be allowed to set targets without consultation with the industry. And because of our interventions, we are able to say that the minister now does have to engage with industry to ensure that those targets are set in an achievable and a sustainable manner. So a big conversation, an important conversation for us as South Africans as well, but really something that we need to take seriously and to drive forward. From an AML, anti-money laundering, FICA perspective, obviously you'll all be aware that South Africa was grey listed. We recognize this is a huge challenge for us, again, as South Africa as a country. We've spent a lot of time this year working to educate our members around what the requirements are and what the obligations are. If we don't step in and intervene as individual businesses, we will stay on the grey list, and the damage to the country for having this is huge. So we really do need to think about that. Just lastly, hot off the press on the two-pot system. We have heard that the parliamentary committee has been indicated by following feedback from National Treasury that the date is going to be pushed forward to the 1st of March 2025. I think a big sigh of relief from the industry, because the timelines were really not viable in terms of giving effect to those changes. For us, it's very important also that our brokers actually know and understand what those changes are going to be, and so that they can advise their clients appropriately. It isn't simply there's a 1/3 pot and there's a 2/3 pot. There are many members with multiple different versions of retirement funding, taking into account the changes across the industry. And so we need that time to align ourselves with what those changes actually are. And we haven't even seen what the final version is yet. Just briefly, we're also very involved outside of the slide in terms of education is hugely important to us as the FIA. We apply to InsureTalk for funding for our members to roll out things like class of business training, regulatory exams that they wouldn't otherwise be able to access through InsureTalk funding, but also to take away some of the red tape that they experience. We're working with other professional bodies to look at how we can implement industry qualifications to really improve the environment for brokers coming up in their journey into the industry. And then just finally and very, very briefly, we have had a number of wins over the last couple of years. Some of them take a very long time to come to fruition. I'm only going to touch on a couple of these. The reduction in FSCA levies, this was huge for us. We had been lobbying on this for 7 years. Since the proposals were introduced to implement the Twin Peaks model, in some instances, some intermediaries would have experienced a 40 to 50% increase in their levies on an annual basis when the special levy was taken into account. And as a consequence of our engagements, I'm pleased to say we landed up with a substantial reduction there, which was huge. Again, the non-life FICA project, this was another thing where the regulator indicated that they were going to include non-life businesses and the non-life industry into the list of accountable institutions, which was going to bring in huge costs to the industry. for those non-life businesses that don't currently have to comply with the AML requirements. And again, as a result of the work that we did in conjunction with other industry associations, the regulator agreed that the sector remained low risk and therefore did not need to be included in that list of accountable institutions. So really, we've had a number of big wins over the last few years. I'm very proud to have been able to participate in them. I think when I put these together and really in closing, I realize how much we do, but also how much there is still to do. And we understand the importance of the role of brokers, and therefore we take what we do very, very seriously. A lot of what we do amounts to risk mitigation, as you do with your clients. The risk or the threat of regulatory change or tsunamis or climate risks or anything else that we're facing these days is always there. But due to the work that we do, we're really able to mitigate the risk without there being an impact on the business. Often you don't even see what was coming your way because we stop it before it comes. It's the metaphorical wave that we're preventing from crashing into the building. So really, it's a big journey. It's a huge journey. On days it feels very, very daunting and very, very scary. But I really think that the work that we do and the work that the industry does, and if we all work together, we can find solutions for really, really worthwhile change in the industry. And once again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak here today and for those in the industry who support us and travel the journey with us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sam. I'm going to show my age now. I'm the 33rd year in the insurance industry. And I remember the industry before it became professional, when we had West Rand cowboys and people adding commission onto policies that didn't exist. And it was chaos. So at the heart of this professionalism of our industry sits the compliance function. And I have the utmost respect for what you do, as well as to the FIA. Lizelle is here today as well. We appreciate you participating. And Sam, that was a very insightful conversation there. So our next speaker is Chad Thomas. He's the CEO of IRS Forensic Investigations. It feels to me as if we've only had legal professionals speak here today, because Chad has got an international criminal law background. He is a 32-year veteran of law enforcement in South Africa. He is the recipient of the Security Industry's 2019 Bravery Award, as well as the Security Industry Gold Medal for Bravery awarded in 1998. He was nominated for the Mail and Guardian Drivers of Change Award. He is also someone who spends a lot of time in the media. He was the host of the radio show Corruption Busters. You might remember that show. That won Best Daytime Radio Show in South Africa in 2017. And he's currently the host of the actuality radio show called Confidential Brief on Chai FM. And it was a finalist for the Best Daytime Radio Show Award at the SA Radio Awards in 2020. So he's a regular crime commentator on television news and print media. And he is going to talk to us about deep fake and social media scams. So we're ramping it up a little bit with something different. And I'm going to hand you over to Chad at this point in time. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Get all my bits and bobs together. I'm going to set a timer for 20 minutes, so it'll go off just in case I go over or if I go off on a tangent. And I do tend to go off on tangents. On the 18th of July this year, we did a presentation for the Hawks at the GCIS conference center in Pretoria. And I literally threw my notes up in the air and started chatting about the excuses we constantly hear about capacity and resources, reason why people are inundated with criminal dockets that they can't get through, and how this has a knock-on effect with prosecutors. We don't have enough court days, we don't have enough presiding officers. And I realized during this time that the reason we're in this dilemma is not because we don't have passionate people within law enforcement, and not because we don't have adequate legislation. We have all of that. What we do have, however, is an unwillingness from a political perspective to fund those critical organizations. So to give you an example, the DPCI, which is Directorate Priority Crime Investigation, that's the official title of the Hawks, receives 2% of the annual police budget. They are not a standalone independent investigation unit like the Scorpions. When the Scorpions were disbanded, the DPCI or the Hawks were created within SAPS to investigate priority crimes. And I like to put the emphasis on priority crimes, which is why I like to call it by its full name, the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation. They get 2% of the annual police budget. That equates to around 2 billion rand. With that 2 billion rand, they just at the 50% capacity mark. That excludes members that are seconded to the investigating directorate. It excludes members that are allocated to the asset forfeiture unit. So they're running most probably on a third of the amount of people that they should be having, and they are our priority crime investigation component. Conversely, of course, we see in the media, they report that VIP protection and security services within SAPS get 3.5% of the annual police budget. So one starts questioning, where do our priorities lie when it comes to the fight against crime? We see that the investigating directorate bill is currently before Parliament, and it's before Parliament to make it a permanent fixture. It's going to be known as IDAC, the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption. This unit was formed after the Zondo Commission findings, and its role is not just to investigate corruption on a massive scale that's taken place between the public sector and private sector actors, but also to claw back funds. That organization has been going for about 3 years, and in their very first year of inception, when they had to capacitate themselves and start investigating the findings that came out of Zondo, their entire budget was 100 million rand. Their current budget is about 350 million rand. You guys in corporate can equate to what that actually is in rands and cents and what one can actually do with that. Not very much. And this, to me, is a massive blunder on the part of the state, because if you look at the investigating directorate, that's the one particular unit that you'd have return on investment. If you're to invest in that unit with the correct members skilled in financial recoveries, clawbacks, etc., number one, we'll get off the grey list, but number two, we'll recover monies into the fiscus that have been plundered by these public and private sector actors. Why am I talking about this when I'm meant to be talking about deep fakes? Well, we are beset with deep fakes at the moment, and we need to investigate these. We have a Cyber Crimes Act. It's been in force for just over a year now, but that act calls for specialized investigators to be appointed. That hasn't happened as yet. We're reliant on the South African Police Services together with the DPCI to provide such members, but we already know their capacity issues. Within SAPS, 1,000 seasoned veteran detectives took early retirement at 55. They haven't yet been replaced. This is creating a massive burden on the private sector, who's now required to not just open a case, but to have investigated that case to give a completed product across to the authorities if they hope that there's going to be some or other investigation or some or other financial restitution that takes place. You guys in the insurance game, you liked figures. Deepfakes, it's been reported by Bloomberg as recently as August of this year that deepfakes will contribute in the region of 10 trillion rand in losses in cybercrime worldwide. Bloomberg conducted a study, and in that study in America, they found at the low end, a company that had an incident involving deepfake lost at the low end 300,000 US, at the high end 35 million US. It costs between $300 and $20,000 to create a deepfake video. So you'd see it's a very profitable business. South Africa reported there's been an uptick in deepfakes. But what are deepfakes? I found this incredible definition, and I'd like to read it to you. Let me find it. So this definition says the rise of deepfakes has left consumers and financial institutions concerned about the potential for financial crimes. A deepfake is a manipulated video, audio, or image created using artificial intelligence, which involves replacing a person's face, voice, or body with someone else, making it difficult to distinguish the fake from the original. As a result, deepfakes can be used to commit a wide range of financial crimes, such as phishing, fraud, and identity theft. Phishing attacks are one of the most common types of financial crimes that can be perpetrated using deepfakes. We all know about the catfishing, and we'll chat about the history of this and how it's impacted our local consumers in a few minutes. A deepfake can be used to impersonate a trusted individual, such as a bank employee or a government official, and trick the victim into providing sensitive information, such as password or credit card numbers. For example, a deepfake video can create a fake call from a bank representative asking the victim to share their banking information. Fraudulent activities can also be carried out using deepfakes. A fraudster can create a deepfake video of a business owner authorizing the transfer of large sums of money to a fraudulent account. The video can then be used to convince business employees to transfer the money without suspecting any wrongdoing. This takes me back, I don't know what the age group is like here, but and this may shock you when you hear the year that this video came out, but it reminds me of the video by Michael Jackson, Black or White. The end of that video showed humans and their faces changing and morphing into people of different ethnic groups, different genders, different voices. And it was amazing. When we saw this type of CGI technology, we thought, wow, that was in 1991. That's how far back that video, Black and White, is by Michael Jackson. And it just shows how this has been available as a technology, but it hasn't been used to the extent it has today. And I'm going to explain why in a few minutes. To combat this growing threat, regulators and industry experts have come together in ways to protect consumers. The financial industry plays a role in protecting consumers from financial crimes involving deepfakes. One of the most important steps financial institutions can take is to invest in technologies that can detect and prevent deepfakes from being used to commit financial crimes. For instance, some companies use machine learning algorithms to analyze video footage and identify deepfakes. Another way financial institutions can protect consumers from financial crimes involving deepfakes is by implementing stronger identification and verification processes. By verifying the identity of their customers, financial institutions can reduce the risk of fraud and identity theft. The financial industry should also work to increase awareness among consumers about the risk of financial crimes involving deepfakes. This could involve educating customers about spotting a deepfake and what to do if they suspect a deepfake attack has targeted them. The rise of deepfakes presents a significant threat to the financial industry, as they can be used to commit a wide range of financial crimes. To protect consumers, regulators in the financial sector must work together and invest in technologies that can detect and prevent deepfakes, implement more robust identity verification processes, and increase consumers' awareness of the risks of financial crimes involving deepfakes. While there's no perfect solution to this problem, combining these measures can help mitigate the risks of financial crimes involving deepfakes. It is, of course, important to note that the fight against deepfakes is not limited to the financial industry alone. Other sectors such as media, politics, and entertainment are also grappling with the issues of deepfakes. Conversation for another day is how deepfakes are being used in false flag projects, and that's where you talk about the political and the geopolitical shifts that we're seeing at the moment. However, given the potential for financial losses and the impact that financial crimes involving deepfakes can have on consumers and the economy, the financial industry must take proactive steps to protect itself and its customers. I got a lot of that from a Cyber Chronicles, which is on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn has become a go-to tool for industry professionals. I'm nervous sometimes talking about LinkedIn because we saw what happened with MySpace, with Facebook, with Twitter, with TikTok, where we've seen imposters moving in. Imposters are everywhere. Imposters using fake identities have been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Fraud is a very, very old type of crime. But why are we seeing it so prevalent today, specifically in respect of deepfakes? Well, I like to refer to Black Swan events as being the catalyst for these type of incidents to occur. When we were beset with COVID in South Africa in March of 2020, we quite accurately predicted that there would be a massive increase in PPE-related fraud. Everybody we knew suddenly knew somebody who was selling masks on social media. We heard people auctioning masks off, saying they had a shipment at the airport at this time of day. They needed to move it. People came out with different products to defog rooms, to sterilize hands. And suddenly we found out that our country itself was the victim of a massive PPE fraud. And the figure was quite hard to believe, and it was put in the region of 500 billion. And that was in respect of PPE fraud that government suffered. And we're still picking up the pieces. So not only do we have what's come out of state capture, where dedicated members from specific units have been seconded to investigate state capture, but we also have dedicated members now investigating the massive impact that PPE fraud had and how those tenders were rigged. That also looks to other tenders that have been rigged. So you can see that we're almost in the eye of a perfect storm when it comes to organized crime in South Africa. How did deepfakes come about? Well, we as humans like contact. We like to interact with one another, and a lot of people suffered from that lack of interaction during COVID. We had hard lockdowns. We didn't get to see one another. When we did get to see one another, it was under very restrictive conditions. So the new norm became virtual. We started speaking to people via computer. We started speaking to people more via our cell phones using FaceTime. We started leaving more voice notes and receiving more voice notes, and in some instances, even pre-recorded video messages to one another, just to give each other that little bit of a boost during those very trying times. And what did that do? It acclimatized us. It made it normal. It made it to us as being an everyday occurrence that we can now not have a meeting in person at our offices with our colleagues. We could now reach them virtually. We could have meetings virtually, or like today, we could have hybrid meetings, even given, rise to new terms. We're having a hybrid conference today. So what that did is it gave fraudsters an opportunity to use this, because we were now used to the fact that we could video conference, we could send voice notes, we could receive voice notes, and therein lay an opportunity for fraudsters. And we've seen a massive rise in not just deep fakes involving family members, but also involving people purportedly in a position of trust, such as banking officials, etc. And this does not bode well in a country like South Africa, where we've got historical issues that we are trying to deal with in respect of organized crime. When I look at Zondo, it's become a historical issue because it dates back to 2010, 2011, 2012, when the capture years really started. By 2014, the capture years were in full swing, where SARS was basically obliterated by state capture actors. So when I talk about historical problems, we're dealing with cases that date back all the way to the 2000s. When we look at the arms deal case, and we're not looking at it in isolation with the Zuma involvement, but the arms deal itself was signed in December 1999, and we still have investigations around the arms deal all these years later. So my greatest concern at this point is, how do we face this ever-increasing threat? Every single one in this room knows somebody, if they haven't been victims themselves, of a phishing expedition where somebody has sent you a friend request and it's been fake, or somebody's tried to join you to a WhatsApp group to invest in either crypto or Forex. It really, really is on the rise. And as AI learns to improve itself, so it'll become harder for biometric included multi-factor authentication, which will lead to a massive increase in financial loss. And of course, this impacts directly on the insurance industry. We need to be able to understand the different legislation that's in place. We need to understand that our police and our other law enforcement arms are under severe pressure. They're not broken. The system is close to broken, but it's not broken. I'm in the fortunate position that I get to deal with people on a daily basis, be that the NPA, the AFU, the DPCI, or SAPS, and you can see that they are motivated. They are under pressure. The system is under pressure. And we as the private sector need to help capacitate. We can't expect to just fill out a tick box exercise, hand it over to the authorities, and expect them to run with it. It's just not possible at this point in time. There's just too much that's been happening in South Africa. And as lyrical as this may sound, we do have to join hands with the public sector. We've seen great successes with organizations such as the South African Insurance Crime Bureau. We've seen success with South African Fraud Prevention Services and other similar type operations. And if we can understand that the state isn't reluctant to take on cases, they just inundated with cases, and we can somehow make their life easier, we will be able to combat this new scourge much the same as we've been able to combat others. But the solution to deepfakes is not going to come from the state. It's not going to become a reporting function from us hoping that the state is going to make a difference. We are going to have to learn. And as one of the speakers mentioned earlier, this constant AI learning and these models that are being introduced is the only way that we can succeed in protecting the consumers and our clients. I've got 3 minutes to spare, and I think we were running a bit late, so thank you so very much.
Okay. I have more and more things to carry every time I come back to the podium. I just came across a quote, and I thought it really spoke to what the picture that Chad just painted to us. It's by John Adams. He says, "In my many years, I have come to the conclusion that 1 useless man is a shame, 2 is a law firm, and 3 or more is a government." So, Chad, thank you so much for giving us that incredible insight into your world and what we are dealing with as an industry, because we are on the receiving end of all of this. Our next speaker is our only virtual speaker of the day. Anthony Miller is going to join us from Cape Town. He is the CEO of Simply. Anthony is a friend in our group in Lombard, one of our investments in the Lombard group. And he has started a magnificent business a number of years ago. He's the CEO, as I said, and co-founder of Simply, a startup revolutionizing mass market life insurance in South Africa and elsewhere soon, he says. With a background in startups, strategy consulting, and engineering, Anthony brings a unique blend of skills to the InsureTalk space. Outside of work, he prioritizes family time and enjoys a range of outdoor activities from running and mountain biking to fishing and golf. And I can say this, I ran an actual marathon with Anthony in Paris. So he is a runner. So his topic today is the future of life insurance, a tech-infused perspective. So I'm going to hand over digitally to Anthony, and looking forward to this talk.
Hi, Christelle. Thanks very much for that kind introduction. You are always very kind. I hope the sound is coming through okay there. I'm just sharing my screen now to take you guys through some thoughts. Cool. So hopefully that's visible. Great. Cool. Well, firstly, thanks very much to the InsureTalk team for the opportunity to talk today. I feel quite a bit of pressure after all the great speakers that have been ahead of me. And I hope that what I've offered up today is not too light. There's been a lot of deep, thoughtful content. So my goal here is to give kind of a broad perspective on my thoughts, as opposed to like a really deep insight into some of the trends that I'm going to discuss. So the topic that I was asked to talk about today is the future of life insurance, and in particular to give a tech-based perspective. So before we start, I've found a really interesting little video snippet that I think will get everyone's heads into the right space for what I'm going to share. And fundamentally what it's about is that things are changing at a speed that's kind of very hard to keep up with. And we all need to be very open-minded about what tech can do for us. So I'm going to share a little video, and then I'll be back with you in a few minutes, or at least in a minute. Thanks. So credit to Dassault Systems for that video. I just thought it was a really great, quick encapsulation of the rate at which technology is changing our lives. And as much as it's changing our lives in our personal capacity, it's changing our lives professionally. A lot of the speakers have spoken about the topics that I'm going to cover. So hopefully it's not going to be too stale by the time I get there. What I've tried to think about are, what are, in my view, 5 key life insurance tech trends to watch in 2024? And these are not things that are new in 2024 or new in 2023, but things that I think are going to be really important and where winners will emerge by using these technologies effectively. So the first is telematics and wearables. I'm going to go into a bit more detail on each of these topics. So first is telematics and wearables. The second is big data and advanced analytics. The third, because I come from a data background, I've split data out actually into 2 separate trends. So the third is artificial intelligence and machine learning, and I'll talk about why I think those 2 things are different. The fourth, in my view, is blockchain and smart contracts. So not something we're seeing a lot of in South Africa, but something that I think is going to be really big in the future. And then finally, InsureTalk platforms and integrators. So for me, those are the 5 most important trends emerging globally in life insurance at the moment. What does that mean? Telematics and wearables. I think everyone in the room there probably has some form of wearable that you use, whether it's an iWatch or an Apple Watch or a Garmin device. Everybody's using them, and increasingly that's creating data and opportunity for life insurers to help people live better lives. I mean, to help people live healthier lives, which has benefits obviously for the person, but also for the life insurer. Real-time health data, it enables very personalized pricing and policies, and obviously creates better outcomes for everybody, as I said. The next is big data and advanced analytics. My business prior to Simply was a company called Lightstone, which was actually in this big data and analytics space. So it's something that's really close to me. And something that I think is super valuable. Obviously, in the life insurance context, if you have more data than everybody else and you're better at analyzing it, it gives you a significant competitive advantage. So for me, as much as it's a emerging important tech trend, to some extent, it's becoming a hygiene factor if you want to compete effectively. The next obvious opportunity is refining the underwriting processes, moving away from manual application-based underwriting to using big data. So data from, for example, health providers like blood labs or credit bureaus. And then finally, being more competitive and more customized in your pricing. Obvious applications there, but critical and not done as well as you'd think. My experience with large insurance companies is often they can't even connect the same customer across different parts of the organization. So big opportunities here, I think, for all of us to improve. The third is AI and machine learning, obviously a very important and topical subject at the moment. AI, to differentiate between big data and advanced analytics. Big data and advanced analytics tends to be static and tends to be driven by professionals. the most important or most significant thing with AI and machine learning is that the machine is starting to do the work for you. So those of you who have played around with ChatGPT will know that this thing is incredible. It behaves like a human. If you're good at asking questions, it can give you really good answers. However, you need to be careful and you need to vet the information that you get. But this is a really, really important development that's gone from 0 to 300 in the last 6 months, it feels. So something to look at. I did want to make a point, which is it's not all bad and it's not all risk. I saw a lot of points in the comments earlier around risk to jobs, etc. There's some really interesting articles, one of which is by the guys from Andreessen Horowitz, about how AI actually may be really positive for jobs. So it's important to understand those perspectives. You know, for example, every new significant technology that's come out, people have been fearful. And for the most part, it's increased productivity, which has in turn led to economic growth, which has actually in turn led to better jobs. So something that I feel positive about is AI and the potential for AI to create better jobs for people. From an insurer's perspective, the applications are endless, you know, from writing better marketing copy to better call center scripts to improved risk assessment to really intuitive chatbots that can help you get what you need, you know, in a matter of seconds. And from my perspective, the way we should be thinking about this is how do we help our people be more effective? So I saw some comments to that effect in the string earlier, and I think that's exactly the way to think about it is, as a person, what should I be doing? How should I be servicing my client? How should I be servicing the other people in my business? What information would make me better at doing that? And AI can be super effective in enabling that. Blockchain and smart contracts. So it seems like, you know, all the buzz around crypto has subsided a little. Underpinning crypto is blockchain technology, and increasingly real applications are being developed on that blockchain technology. Contracting, smart contracting being a really big part of it. So I'm a bit skeptical about some of the applications that are being talked about and punted in the crypto blockchain space. But I think we're going to see lots of really innovative, efficient solutions coming out here that enable, you know, far better ways of dealing with contracts, significant opportunities to reduce fraud, and lots of great opportunities to improve efficiency in the process of putting in place agreements, etc. The next is one that's closer to what we do at Simply, and that's InsureTech platforms and integrators. What are these? So InsureTech's also been a buzzword. For me, the key point about platforms is that they enable other players to participate really effectively in the industry. So, for example, it could be a platform that provides claims inspections that can plug into any of a number of insurers, for example. Another might be an end-to-end insurance platform that enables product providers to rapidly spin up and roll out products. There are very many examples of these InsureTech platforms out there. Some of them focused on very specific services that can plug into other players, and others actually providing a platform that enables businesses to run their entire service offering in one place. So been a massive focus on you know, these platform type businesses in recent years. I've provided a few examples down at the bottom: Fabric, Root, Ladder. Simply, we're an example of a business that runs our own business, but we also provide our technology to others to run their businesses. So those are what I think are the 5 key trends to be thinking about globally and that are going to emerge globally. What do we need to consider in South Africa as we think about where we want to invest our efforts in this space? And I think there are a number of factors that need to be considered. So firstly, our economic and political environment is obviously very challenging. The second is our landscape is quite crowded. So I wouldn't want to go and be another big life insurer in South Africa. It's crowded. We've got quality players. Their products are all quite similar. It's not obvious what the opportunity is. We've got very deep smartphone and internet penetration and adoption. And we've also got almost developed market regulations. One of the speakers earlier was speaking about our regulatory environment. It's very robust, which has lots of advantages. The disadvantage sometimes is that the consequences mean that it's hard to innovate. So that's the context. So in that context, I've given a little thought to, of these trends that I think are going to be the most important globally, which are the ones that I'd be wanting to bet on locally. So in the context that I've described, for me, InsureTech platforms and integrators are an obvious one. And we've seen quite a strong emergence of these types of businesses in recent times. So you guys will know the names of some of the platform providers out there who are increasingly enabling big corporates to accelerate their trajectory in the digital space. There are also platforms out there that provide access to services like claims assessment, as I mentioned earlier. What's also been interesting in this context is non-insurance players coming into the space because they actually have these platforms. So very good examples are banks or telcos who have platforms that access customers that are able to facilitate premium collection. And so adding product and plugging them into their distribution has been very easy. So for me, thinking about platforms that are out there, platforms that you can plug into, platforms that give you access to markets that are otherwise difficult to reach is something that I would certainly be thinking about. The next is big data and advanced analytics. I think this is a massively underutilized opportunity in South African life insurance. I've dealt with a number of really large life insurers. And for me, the opportunity to do a lot more in this space is very obvious. I've actually always been quite surprised from my days in strategy consulting how more effort is not put into creating really good databases as a baseline for then developing models and ultimately products and solutions. I think this is a really big opportunity. Tools today are far better. It's far easier to deal with legacy issues. So I see an opportunity for businesses to invest in this, and to a large extent, businesses that don't invest in this will be left behind. And then finally, AI and machine learning. Again, to the point that I made earlier around don't fear AI and machine learning. Think about how AI and machine learning can help you and all the people in your organization be more effective. So for me, I'm a tech optimist. I think there are lots of tech pessimists or people that are fearful about tech. And I think in many cases, it's appropriate to be fearful because AI and machine learning, robotics that someone spoke about earlier, these things are going to replace repetitive, mundane tasks. And in many professions, some of the stuff that's done today will no longer be done by humans, at least not in the same way, and not with the same level of effort. So it's one thing to say, well, we don't want that because it's going to cost us jobs, but it's also not okay because people in your industries will utilize these technologies and will become far more kind of competitive and productive as a result. So you need to keep up with everyone else. But I think the key with this stuff is to really think about what problem are you trying to solve? What service are you trying to provide? And how can I utilize these tools so that I focus on the stuff that makes me truly valuable? But I would say, in my view, these three things, so digital platforms and InsureTech, so how can I utilize capabilities that are out there to enhance what we already have or what we already do in a marginally valuable way? How do we better use our data and data that's available externally? And then how do we use these AI and machine learning tools that are actually super simple to use in order to make ourselves more effective? So a really interesting example of this is that Microsoft, Google, Apple are all investing heavily in this kind of technology. And you can now, where 2 or 3 years ago we had data and grammar checks in our email, you can overlay AI to actually check that the tone of an email that someone in your team is sending is right. So not only will it suggest better grammar and sort out the spelling, it'll also make sure that the tone is consistent with what you're wanting to represent in your business. So for me, these are three things that we all need to be thinking about. Cool. Then the next thing I wanted to do, and this is I guess, kind of a helpful opportunity to show how we at Simply are thinking about pulling this together is to give you an example of how we've tried to use some of the stuff that I've spoken about to make it far easier to buy a group risk policy for your company. So historically, those of you in the industry will know, in order to get a group risk policy for your staff, you'd have to get hold of a broker or an advisor, provide a whole lot of information to them. They would then send it off to the insurer, or at least to their pricing department. They'd come back with a quote, which would then go into a PDF, which they'd present to you. If you liked it, you could sign up. They'd send you some documents. You'd sign them, send them back. And within a couple of weeks, your staff would be covered. If you wanted to change to a different quote, you'd have to kind of start the process again. So by using technology, it's possible to reduce that whole process into a half an hour exercise. So I'm just going to give you a quick view of how we're trying to do that. And hopefully that'll stimulate some thoughts as to how you guys could be using technology more effectively in your businesses. So this is our staff cover product. And the part that I'm going to demonstrate is how, by integrating with a third-party payroll system, we can get all the data that's needed to fully price a quote and provide a guaranteed quote to the organization, which is customizable in real time. So if that organization wants to solve for a price or solve for an amount of cover that they want to provide, they can do it all in real time, as opposed to having to wait for a whole lot of back and forth email. So there's more to it, obviously, than that, but I thought that that would give you a pretty good taste of how InsureTechs are able to integrate third-party services. So in our case, leveraging Google for capacity, we sell via brokers predominantly, but also direct. We've outsourced our underwriting and reinsurance, and we get data from various third-party sources in order to make the process more efficient and to help us manage risk more effectively. So just about out of time. I think I'm at 19 minutes. So I'm going to call it there and say thank you very much for your attention. I hope that was marginally interesting.
I really hope Anthony is still on the call, because I absolutely love your presentation. I love Simply and what you do. And so excited for the future of Simply, and congratulations on the recently announced deal with Pollard. So thank you for joining us today, Anthony. So there's one person between you and snacks and drinks, and we have kept an amazing speaker for the last slot today. Her name is Kate Weaver-Gibbs. She is a traumatic brain injury survivor. She's a writer and CEO of Are You OK, a mental health platform for everyone. Her topic is ensuring mental health, and in that short and sweet bio, I'm going to hand over to Kate. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm going to keep this short and sweet because we are coming to the end. And I guess that's actually a good lead into my talk, is that things never really work out the way that we plan. Just when you think you've got it sussed, that it's going right, life throws you a curveball that you never saw coming. You have no idea how you're going to get through it. But I guess that's why we got insurance, right? You hope for the best, but you prepare for the worst. If 7 years ago you had told me that I'd be back in South Africa on stage telling my story to the insurance industry, I would have laughed. If you told me I'd be doing this partially blind, divorced, with epilepsy, and I would have had my skull replaced twice, that would have been downright terrifying. So to say that life throws curveballs, I think, is a bit of an understatement, and I'm pretty certain that everybody can attest to that. I was 21 when I met my ex-husband. I was working in a country pub at home in Wales, and Scott had just retired from a professional rugby career and was settling into corporate life. Life took us from Wales to Colorado to Cape Town, Dubai, back to Cape Town again. And am I still good here? Yeah. Where we actually got married in 2014. We fell in love with South Africa, and I can say this as a non-South African. It is a privilege to live in this country. It is an amazing, amazing place to be. People laud the landscapes and the wines and things like that, but it's not. It's the people that make this country. And I love it. I've made it my home. So thank you for having me. But after 5 years of being in Cape Town, we felt that maybe a move north was the best thing for us. And so we ended up in Verona, in Italy. And it was Valentine's Day on 2016 that we arrived there. We fell in love with the city, and I think the city fell in love with us as well. 2016, for me, truly was an amazing year. It was the year that my life changed forever. By that summer, I had a new job, I had a new apartment in the city, I was living a couple of streets away from Juliet's balcony, I was part woman, part olive oil, part Aperol Spritz. I mean, I was living La Dolce Vita and loving it. It truly was an amazing year, and it was the year that my life changed. Friday the 2nd of December was a beautiful winter's morning, I'm told. Scott and I were walking to the grocery store, chatting about what we were going to do for Christmas that year. And after all the busyness of the years prior, we wanted to have a quiet Christmas. I have no idea what actually happened that morning. But I was hit by a motorcycle as we were on a pedestrian crossing. The traffic had all stopped, but the motorcyclist didn't. The motorcyclist overtook the traffic, saw us, jumped. I took the bike. We were both hit, but it was my skull that met the concrete first. Scott had to make that call that nobody ever wants to make or ever receive. I don't know what he said, but he had to tell my dad what happened, and over the next 12 hours, give updates on my deteriorating condition. By 9 p.m. that night, my parents were being driven from their home in South Wales 5 hours across the country to Gatwick Airport, when I got called to say that the surgeons had done all they could. There was nothing else. But they were going to let him stay with me until the inevitable happened. I wasn't going to survive the night. So my poor, poor parents made what must have been the longest journey of their lives, with the expectation that the next time they were going to see me was going to be in the hospital mortuary. My mum, to the absolute horror of my father, asked British Airways at check-in how she could bring my body home. By the grace of God and an amazing surgical team, I obviously did survive it. And I got my quiet Christmas. I spent it in a coma. That's terrible, I know. This was the daughter that my parents remembered. This is what they saw in Verona. The catalogue of damage that my body sustained was incredible. My skull had smashed. My neck was broken at C5. My right side was paralyzed. I had a spiral fracture. So I had a fracture that runs around my skull like that. So my skull essentially did that. I know that it's an image that Scott will never get out of his mind, is seeing me lying in the middle of the road with my eyes facing one way, my mouth facing the other way, and blood coming from every orifice. After that initial impact, a week later, CT and MRI scans also showed then that I had brainstem damage. I'm not a neurologist, But I do know that brainstem damage, people don't generally come back from those injuries. And if they do, the quality of their life is severely affected. If you wake up from those injuries, your life is changed beyond measure. But sometimes it's beyond measure in a way that conventional wisdom wouldn't have you believe. When you do wake up, though, from those injuries, the journey back it's bizarre. You have no memory, but you're terrified at the same time. You left your life as a happy, independent, worldly woman, and you know you did because people keep treating you that way, but you return to it essentially as a baby. You can't do anything for yourself. You have to relearn how to walk. You have to relearn how to move your eyes. You have to relearn how to hold a pen, clean your teeth, cut your food. And that sounds desperately pitiful. And these photos break my heart. I obviously don't remember any of this. And when you look back at it, you actually look back at it as an outsider. You don't equate that to yourself. And it sounds desperately pitiful having to relearn to do all of those things again. I mean, I saw it in my mother's eyes as she broke her heart, watching me struggling to put pins or shapes on pins in my rehabilitation and put the triangle-shaped block in the triangle-shaped hole or color in between lines. But when you don't have a memory about what you could do before, I found all of the rehabilitation rewarding. That I actually enjoyed. The greatest challenge, though, it comes with all of the emotions that you have and the questions that you have that nobody can answer for you. They can't answer and they can't help you with it. Has my brain taken so much of a trauma that it's eventually going to give up? Will I have a spontaneous personality change, become a psychopath? Will I ever be happy and independent again? That was a challenge. That I had to do alone. That nobody could help me with. And my goodness, is it lonely. There's no lonelier place to be than in the company of those who know and love you the most and just want you to be back to normal. You haven't got a clue what normal looks like. But they just want you to be back to normal. You can see it in their faces when they're searching for a sign of the old you. But you're not you. Your memory has been wiped. You're there physically as a person, but you are existing in this, you're existing internally whilst observing everything that goes on around you. You're confused, you're scared, you're lonely, and you're wondering what on earth you need to do or say just to make everybody else around you comfortable with you. It's made even lonelier when the life that you don't remember is scrutinized by insurance company lawyers to determine how much your life is actually worth. Now, I'm sorry, I had to throw that in there, okay? With the value of my life being based on my career and my income pre-accident, my lifelong underachievement complex was finally realized. Moving countries and finding new jobs in each, I'd never really had the opportunity to build a career. So I got to find out after all of that hard work that my life is actually worth a lot less than I thought it was. But this isn't a story that it's about that, and it's not a story of, wow, look at me, I'm a hero, or woe is me, it was a tale of helplessness. It's a story about the love and the goodness that can be found in the darkest moments of what the media and contemporary life says is an increasingly fractured and broken world. But in my experience, life is actually amazing. People are amazing. And in this experience, from the moment of impact, there was a domino effect of goodness. We were hit half a mile from the European Centre of Excellence for Neurology. The on-call surgeon that day, Dr. Umberto Maria Ricci, was a spinal specialist and was able to mitigate any long-term disabilities. And that sickening way that my skull split, that actually saved my life. So 2017 was teed up to be a heartbreaking year for my family. I started it paralyzed, without a skull, without a vision, or a memory. But I finished it at Harvard, discussing my master's degree, having hiked the Rocky Mountains and surprising my brother in Vegas on the way. Yes, life does throw you curveballs. It grieves you to the point that you find yourself on your hands and knees on your bathroom floor, sobbing into a towel. But if you're lucky and you have a support structure in place, it will spit you out the other side a better person. And maybe that's the point of life. It's not to dodge the curveballs, but it's to grab them, and it's to make them work for you. If you asked me to go back now and have that accident happen or not, I would choose it every day, because you don't know how to start living until you know how to start dying. I thought I was okay before that accident, but it took getting my head smashed in and relearning my own memory to realize that I wasn't. When you know that, you live so much differently. You take the messy parts of your life and you use it to shape a future for yourself. You use your vulnerabilities to connect with others, and you live your life on purpose. You see your life story as the medium through which to share what you've learned. And the greatest lesson that I have learned, and it's one that I've come back to over the last 7 years, is that people are priceless and humanity is the hero. You just need it to see it. Because it's there all the time. It's always around us, but we're always too busy and we are too focused on our to-do lists and all of the problems and the stress that we got going on in our lives. I'm blessed to have survived that accident. I'm truly blessed with an amazing family and an incredible support team. I had a mother who wouldn't let anybody near my hospital bed unless they brought positivity. Nobody was allowed to cry anywhere near me. I had a father who refused outright to believe that I wasn't going to survive. And I had a husband who fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself, and has fought alongside me every day since, even though we are no longer husband and wife. I'm privileged to be standing here 7 years later, to have the opportunity to start over, to relearn and rebuild a life. I certainly have questions and anxieties, and I definitely don't have it figured out. But what I do know is that safeguarding your mind and finding a strong sense of self before you are thrown that curveball does ensure that you will come out of that dark place and you will come out of it well, and you'll come out of it a lot better than the person you were when you went into it. You don't need to go through catastrophic brain injury, sickness, or death to know what pain is. Pain is universal. If you feel it, somebody else does too. And the greatest thing that you can do with your pain is share it. Because others' achievements and successes may be impressive, but that's not what connects us. It's our human fallibility that does. So share your story and check in with someone else. My recommended strategy for securing your mental health is stop, check, and connect. Stop thinking you have to have it all figured out. You don't, and you won't anyway. So go check in with your friends, your family, your loved ones. Check in with your colleagues, the guy who makes your coffee, the lady who's scanning your groceries. Heck, check in with the stressed out, precious stranger behind you. But more than that, check in with yourself and ask that simple question. Are you okay? Because you will be surprised how a simple question can change your day and that of somebody else. And it's that is what matters the most, is your connectivity. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kate. And what a wonderful way to just be reminded of the importance of mental health. And it is October, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. So what a fitting way to end this magnificent morning, almost afternoon. So before I let you go, there's just a few things that I wanted to share with you. We've heard a lot about the pandemic this morning. We still talk about it. But at the moment, this country of ours is gripped by another type of fever, Bach fever. So I see that Pollard and de Klerk is in the starting lineup. Ox is on the bench at the heart of the bomb squad. I don't know where that came from. I don't really watch rugby. But what is so amazing about what we're seeing again is the way that our nation is just uniting behind this incredible team. And we have such a sense of pride, national pride, because there is one thing that we do well, and that is play rugby. Which brings me to the closing comment of today. Something else that we do really well in this country is insurance. We can keep our heads very high on the international stage as far as this industry is concerned. So we have a lot to be proud of. The CN&CO team and the InsureTalk team today just reminded us again that this industry is something that we can be absolutely proud and privileged to be part of. So on that note, there's some parking tickets apparently on the table outside if you're not staying with us. For those who are staying to network, let's do what we do really well. Get together, have a bite to eat, and be entertained. Thank you very much.